Chapter 2447. Long Ken and Long K were put on the spot. In terms of strength, their combined strength was even higher than Ao Lon and Long Kwang's combined strength. However, against Yang Chun, who could not be measured by common sense, their strength was simply useless. Originally, they wanted to test Yang Chen's strength. In the end, after being smashed by Yang Chun, they immediately realized that with their current strength, they were far from being a match for this junior, Yang Chun. If you want to fight, then fight properly. There is no point in using such messy tricks. After Yang Chun said this again, he took out 2 medicinal pills and threw them at Long Can and Long K. We'll continue after you recover. Long Can and Long K held onto the 2-8 Revolution Merit Ganoderma Jade pills, which were treasures in the eyes of other cultivators. They looked at each other and did not know what to do. On the other hand, Ao Lon and Long Kwang took the initiative to ask for 2 essence-nurturing pills from Yang Chun to recover. Seeing that Ao Lon and Long Kwang had started to recover, Long Can and Long K looked at each other and took out their own elixirs. They were not afraid that Yang Chun had given them poison. In terms of alchemy, Yang Chun could confidently say that aside from Big Brother Li Chung, there was no other cultivator in the spiritual realm who could compare to him. Even Madame Bai, who had reached the 10,000 tribulation true immortal realm, was the same. After the 2 elixirs entered their stomachs, Long Can and Long K felt the changes in their bodies. They did not care about anything else and slowly recovered. The demonic beasts surrounding the Long family's experts had already disappeared without them realizing it. Long Yuan also understood that his rash actions just now had led to very bad consequences. He didn't dare to say anything else and obediently returned to his original chair, not daring to move recklessly anymore. After they had recovered, Long Can and Long K, Ao Lon, and Long Kwang started to fight again. However, after the earlier disturbance from the demonic beasts and Yang Chen's valiant performance, the momentum that they had accumulated for a whole month was no longer at its peak. Even so, the battle between the 2 sides was still an eye-opener for Yang Chun. In their dragon form, the dragon race was indeed many times stronger than in their human form. Being able to use their instincts to attack was more direct than adapting to the changes in their human bodies. Hence, their attacks were much stronger. In the previous battle, the attacks from both sides were more like probing each other. But now, it could be considered as the true start of the ferocious fight. The Dragon Clan's powerful body and sharp claws were no longer the most lethal means. Instead, it was the Dragon Clan's method of using spiritual power as well as the life origin magic treasures that they refined with a part of their body. The scaly claws began to fly in the air, blood splashed, and the broken scales scattered. Yang Chun picked up 2 pieces, each of which was the size of an ordinary dustpan, of the dragon. One was from Long Can and Long Quebec Long Ao Lon and Ao. 1 Lon. Long of the other 2 of Can Long Ao of Lon and K of Lon. Ao Lai looked down on Yang Chun when he saw all this. He looked down on Yang Chen's sneaky actions of taking advantage of others to take advantage of them. Ao Lai, who saw all this, looked down on Yang Chun. He looked down on Yang Chen's sneaky actions of taking advantage of others to take advantage of them. What do you know? Could it be that you want me to peel off some of your scales for no reason? Yang Chun did not realize that he was being looked down on. He said righteously, "If I don't take advantage of this situation to pick up some scales that you don't want, what other opportunity do I have? This is a supreme treasure for refining pills. If you don't understand, don't speak nonsense." To cultivators, the bodies of the dragon race were indeed precious treasures. Otherwise, Wang Dongzhu of the Fortune-Gathering Pavilion would not have been willing to exhaust all his resources to obtain Long Kwang's body. However, when Yang Chen said this, everyone was speechless. Even Ao Lai curled his lips and did not say anything else. Of course, the experts of the Long clan heard what Yang Chen said. However, they could only stand there, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. They pretended that they did not hear anything. What else could they say? Could it be that they took the initiative to tell Yang Chen that he could come over and peel off their scales at any time? There was no need to be so tasteless. After both sides used their natal magic treasures, the battle became much crueler. Soon, blood appeared on the bodies of the three dragons. However, the battle was still limited to a certain range. This showed that both sides had a precise control over their attacks. Although Yang Chen's performance was very unsightly, he was either taking advantage of the chaos to collect the scales and broken horns that fell from the battle or the fresh dragon blood that was scattered everywhere. However, he had just revealed his skills. None of the dragon race dared to look down on him. While he was collecting, Yang Chen did not forget to pay attention to the battle between both sides. Indeed, it was as Yang Chen expected. Ao Lan and Long Quang, who were inferior to Long Can and Long Ke in terms of tacit understanding, slowly fell into a disadvantage. This was especially so after they did not rely on their physical bodies to fight. Previously, when it was 2 against 1, Ao Lan and Long Quang could barely hold the upper hand. Now, they were being suppressed by Long Can and Long Quebec. The cooperation between the two of them was no longer possible. Long Can and Long Ke would work together to break any signs of cooperation. Ao Lan and Long Quang had to face the combined attacks of Long Can and Long Ke at every moment. Long Can and Long Ke cleverly used their advantages to suppress Ao Lan and Long Quang. It looked like the scales of victory were about to tip towards Long Can and Long Quebec. At this moment, Long Quang started to go berserk. After going berserk, he became calm. After this stage, he went berserk again, and his combat prowess increased greatly. This was especially so when he unleashed the 5 elements and unleashed the 5 elements formation. His combat prowess soared, instantly suppressing the advantage that Long Can and Long Ke had painstakingly created. The battle turned into a stalemate again. However, after this stalemate lasted for a period of time, Long Can started to use the power of space to forcefully suppress Long Quang's arrogance. After all, Long Can's life treasure was a spatial treasure. By borrowing the power of half the demon realm, it was not particularly difficult to suppress Long Quang. This round of battle lasted for more than 2 months. Yang Chen and the other experts of the dragon race had also been watching intently for more than 2 months. It had to be said that a battle between peak golden immortals was indeed different from an ordinary battle. Even the experts of the Long family could find many things to learn from it. Not to mention Ao Lai and Xiao Tian, they did not want to shift their eyes away from it. The battle finally came to an end. Long Can and Long Ke each controlled a flying sword made of dragon horn. The tip of the sword was pointed between Ao Lan and Long Quang's eyes. As for Ao Lan and Long Quang's flying sword, they were not to be outdone and were pointed at the heart of Long Can and Long Quebec. This round seemed to be in a stalemate. However, Yang Chen understood that big sister Ao Lan and Long Quang had already lost. Chapter 2448. Although both sides seemed to have grasped each other's fatal spots, their fatal spots were different. Long Can and Long Ke's flying sword was pointed at Ao Lan and Long Quang's eyes. As long as the flying sword was sent forward, they would definitely die. As for Long Can and Long Ke, with Ao Lan and Long Quang pointing at their hearts, they might not die immediately after receiving a blow from the 2 flying swords. If they had spirit herbs or a strong cultivation, they would still be alive and kicking. One side would definitely die, and the other side might survive. It was clear who won. However, these Long Clan experts were close to Ao Lan and Long Quang. They could not persuade Ao Lan and Long Quang to admit defeat. Furthermore, if Long Can and Long Ke told the two to admit defeat, Ao Lan and Long Quang might not be able to accept it. You have lost. Indeed, Long can set his own conclusion as expected. You did not win either, Long Quang said, not admitting defeat, as he controlled his flying sword to move forward and stick it to the scales on his opponent's body. In fact, just this point alone was enough to determine the victor. Ao Lan and Long Quang did not have scales covering their eyebrows. The sharp flying sword could stab into their brains. However, Long Can and Long Ke had thick scales covering their hearts. Even if they attacked at the same time, the order of the flying sword would be different. However, Long Quang clearly did not want to admit defeat. Once he admitted defeat, it would mean that not only did he lose, but his lover, Ao Lan, would also lose. Long Quang thought about what Ao Lan did when he was severely injured. He would rather die than let Ao Lan suffer any more grievances. Both sides were in a deadlock. Neither wanted to take the other's life, but neither wanted to admit defeat. The situation was on the verge of breaking out. Big sister, a loss is a loss. Yang Chun spoke up at an appropriate time. He said to Ao Lan, "It is not important to lose. What I am afraid of is not even having the courage to admit defeat. If that happens, how can my mental state improve in the future?" Just as Long Quang was about to say something to dissuade him, Yang Chun seemed to have expected him to speak. He said directly, "Don't tell me that you can't afford to lose." Even Ao Guang admitted his loss. "Are you more arrogant than him?" Long Quang was rendered speechless. Not to mention Long Quang, even Ao Lan was the same. In terms of cultivation, seniority, and respect, none of the people present could compare to the Dragon King of the East Sea, Ao Guang. Even Ao Guang admitted defeat, so what else could they not admit? When these words came out of Yang Chen's mouth, the people of the Dragon Clan present didn't even have the room to refute. This was not a fabrication. Ao Guang had already used Ao Lan's Heavenly Essence pill. Ao Guang had even told Yang Chen the location of many of Yang Chen's dragon race magic treasures. This was an ironclad fact. No one could deny it. "All right, we have lost." Ao Lan was also very straightforward. He immediately withdrew his flying sword and admitted that he was not as skilled as Xiao Chun. Long Quang had always followed Ao Lan's lead. Whatever Ao Lan did, he would follow it without any hesitation. Long Can and Long K looked at Ao Lan and Long Quang, who readily admitted defeat. The two flying swords hovered between Ao Lan and Long Quang's eyebrows for a long time. Two pairs of dragon eyes stared at Ao Lan and Long Quang's faces carefully, as though they wanted to see something from their faces. In the end, they did not say anything and withdrew their flying swords as well. When Yang Chun saw this scene, his heart skipped a beat. However, he did not say anything at this moment. He only watched quietly. Long Can and Long K were very clear that as long as Yang Chun stood here, he would not tolerate them killing Ao Lan, Long Quang, and the other people of the Long clan. When they were testing each other, Yang Chun left a deep impression on them. Given their current cultivation, they were very clear that they would not be able to defeat Yang Chun in a short period of time. Hence, even if they were unwilling in their hearts, they could only let Ao Lan and Long Quang off. "You have lost. In the future, don't bother about our matters." Long Can was still unwilling. He bitterly dropped a sentence and then stared at Yang Chun fiercely. He turned around and left. "I don't want to see you again. Who cares?" Yang Chun was not afraid of Long Can and Long Quebec. He said tit for tat, "Don't think that you can sit back and relax after defeating big sister Ao Lan. I will give you 100 years to comprehend your cultivation technique thoroughly. Then, I will challenge you again." It was impossible for Yang Chun to let Long Can and Long K off. Yang Chun was very clear on this, and Long Can and Long K were even clearer on this. After defeating Ao Lan and Long Quang, the internal matters of the dragon race would be settled. Yang Chun's challenge was the most important matter. If Yang Chun made a move at this moment, Long Can and Long K would definitely not be a match for Ao Lan and Long Quang, who had just fought a huge battle with Yang Chun. Even with the power of space, Xiao Chun might not be able to gain the upper hand. This was what Long Can and Long K were worried about. If Yang Chun flared up, it would be difficult for them to deal with him. What made Long Can and Long K feel at ease was that Yang Chun had generously given them 100 years to comprehend his cultivation technique thoroughly, allowing their cultivations to reach a higher level. At that time, they might be able to defeat Yang Chun. Long Can waved his hand, and the scene in front of everyone changed. They had already arrived at the edge of the mountain river geographical map. After taking a few easy steps, they arrived at the edge of the mountain river geographical map. They were finally at a safe place. Just as everyone stood still, the scene in front of them changed again. When they stopped, Gong Sunling was already standing beside them. Not far away was the majestic five-element dragon palace. Lady Fanghua was smiling and waiting for everyone with her 30 concubines. Big sister, victory and defeat are common. It is just a small matter. There is no need to take it to heart. Yangshan did not seem to think that Ao Lan's loss was a big deal. He smiled and invited Ao Lan into the dragon palace. After they sat down, he started to explain, "I just feel a little unresigned." Ao Lan's expression was unsightly. No matter who it was, after preparing for tens of thousands of years and working hard for tens of thousands of years, the result of losing could be like her. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, big sister. However, Yangshan acted like he did not see Ao Lan's expression at all. He smiled and handed over a cup of jade dragon wine. Then, he said happily, "You did not use your full power in the battle. Why are you thinking of letting the two of them off?" The moment Ao Lan said that, everyone in the Long clan, including Ao Lan, looked at Yangshan with a strange expression. This was especially so for Long Quang. His expression was even more exaggerated. Rage already appeared in his eyes. Xiao Chen personally fought. Could it be that he did not use his full power? You all keep saying that Long Can is a traitor of the dragon race because he killed his own race. I believe that it is true. At the very least, he killed Long Xiong. Yang Chun ignored Long Quang. He continued, "However, all of you feel that Long Xiong only has himself to blame. Naturally, you will not hate Long Can because of this. I discovered something funny." Yang Chun smiled and said, "Long Can actually used a flying sword refined from a dragon horn. Isn't his life magic treasure able to refine the spatial magic treasure of the spiritual realm? Why did he not use it at all? Why did he insist on fighting evenly with you all? Then, he just happened to have the upper hand." Chapter 2449. However, this judgment caused the expressions of everyone in the Long clan, including Long Quang, to change drastically. Not only did they look at Yang Chan in disbelief, but they also looked at Ao Lan and the Long clan elder, waiting for them to refute or give an explanation. This time, even the oldest expert in the Long clan looked at Yang Chun as though he had seen a ghost. It seemed like Yang Chun had hit the nail on the head. From the reaction of the Long clan's people, this was indeed the case. At the start, they had wanted to pursue Long Can for killing Long K and refining him into a puppet. However, when Long K released his aura, the dragon race knew that something had gone wrong. Later on, even the most arrogant Long Quang only asked them to stop when facing Long Can and Long Quebec. He didn't reveal any intention of punishing them. That's right. The traitor of the dragon race is someone else. At this moment, Ao Lan finally admitted to Yang Chen's suspicions. Furthermore, even now, I have not found his location. Long Can used a flying sword, not a spatial magic treasure. Ao Lai, this guy didn't look sloppy. In fact, he had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. He was an exquisite guy. Just as Yang Chan said it, he understood it and said it out. The Zhao clan had gone through so much trouble to control Long Can for the sake of using his life magic treasure to refine the spiritual world. Everything that had happened previously showed that the spatial magic treasure was indeed very powerful. Now, Ao Lan and Yang Chun suddenly told everyone that the spatial magic treasure was not Long Can's magic treasure. This was too shocking. Even Yang Chen's women turned pale with fright. Actually, aside from my word from 1,000 years ago, Yang Chun has already pointed out a suspicious point. Big sister Ao Lan did not forget to educate the Long clan juniors. It is just that you all did not notice it. However, if Long Can's life magic treasure was the dragon horn flying sword, then what was a spatial magic treasure that could refine the spiritual world? Or rather, whose life magic treasure was it? It seemed like another shocking secret was about to be revealed. Ao Lai seemed to be the most relaxed and did not care about these things at all. In any case, the root cause of everything happened before he came to the spiritual realm, and it had nothing to do with him, so he could stay out of it. Because of this, Ao Lai was the only one who could look at Yang Chen objectively. Did Yang Chen mention anything suspicious just now? Everyone from the Long family began to think carefully, but for a moment, they couldn't remember which part of Yang Chen's sentence was suspicious. The sealed place is the sealed place, and the imprisoned place is the imprisoned place. Aolan shook her head and said, "The seal is a sign. If the seal is not broken, it means that he is still imprisoned. However, I do not know where he is imprisoned." Big sister, you said more than 1,000 years ago that the Dragon Clan had a wood element trader. Legend has it that he was imprisoned in a top-secret formation. Yang Chun still had a light smile on his face as he slowly said, "Longkin doesn't look like he was imprisoned in a top-secret formation." Everyone present looked at Yang Chun with a strange expression. Aolan had an incredulous expression on her face, like she was looking at a deity. That traitor of the Dragon Clan is actually not Longcan, right? Yang Chun finally said his guess. Now that Aolan mentioned it, everyone understood. In front of opponents like Aolan and Long Quang, no matter how powerful Long Can and Long K were, they would not be able to obtain victory by using weapons that they were not comfortable with. That was to say, when Long Can fought, he used his life magic treasure. Furthermore, his life magic treasure was likely the Dragon Horn flying sword. The spatial magic treasure that Gong Sunling fought with for so many years was actually not Long Can's. That was to say, everyone did not even know who their enemy was, fighting a muddled battle for so many years. Big sister, there's no need to look at me like that. Yang Chun smiled warmly. Then he asked, "Is there something that you do not want me to know but cannot avoid?" These words should have been said when Yang Chun first obtained the Wood Dragon Palace. At that time, Aolan had said it was a legend. That was to say, Aolan himself was not sure. Although Aolan did not know what he was not sure of the location of the top-secret formation, not sure of the existence of this traitor. No matter what, it would not be like what Longkin did. Of course, the Zhao family was even more miserable. They thought that they could realize their dream of controlling the spiritual realm and the world after finding a super expert. In the end, they couldn't even figure out who the person was. It could be said to be extremely miserable. Didn't a senior check the sealed land? How could we not know? Yang Chun was stunned. That was what Aolan said back then. Long Quang was at a loss as to what to do with this seal and imprisonment place. Fortunately, everyone was not stupid. After thinking about it carefully, they understood the reason behind it. Although Long K's matter happened after we found out, we were furious. However, after we met, we found out that Long K did it willingly. However, due to a freak combination of factors, it resulted in the current situation. Basically, everyone in the dragon race knew about this. Aolai was the only exception. Now that big sister Aolan explained it so clearly, she wanted Aolai to understand the history of the dragon race. You still remember a casual conversation from more than 1,000 years ago? Aolan felt that this was inconceivable. Just because of this sentence, Yang Chun was able to determine that Long Kin was not the true traitor of the dragon race. Speaking of which, it was also because of Aolan's careless slip of the tongue. Aolan did not know how long she had planned this. In any case, even Long Quang and Long Yuan could not figure it out. This meant that it was very thorough. Aolan felt that she was already pretty good. However, she still could not figure out what went wrong for Yang Chun to figure it out. I told you long ago, this fellow is famous for having a photographic memory. Not to mention 1,000 years ago, he can even remember things from even further back. Aolai interrupted again, not giving Aolan any face. This could also be considered as explaining why Yang Chun still remembered that sentence. Although Long Kin did something that was out of line, it is as we said earlier, that Long Xiong deserved his own death. It is not Long Can's fault. Since Aolai had already said this, it was no longer appropriate for Aolan to hide anything. Furthermore, even the younger generations of the Dragon Clan were waiting to hear about the secrets of the past. Aolan might as well tell them everything. This fellow is famous in the mortal world for having a photographic memory and a photographic memory. Aolai's lazy voice rang out in the ears of all the cultivators. It could be considered as him explaining something to Yang Chun. Aolan, you must have said something in the past and forgotten it. That's why you made such a mistake. I was afraid that you would know about this. That's why I hid some things. Seeing that Yang Chun had already figured out many things, Aolan knew that she could no longer hide some things. So after thinking for a while, she said, "Unexpectedly, you managed to figure it out." Aolan revealed a bitter smile as he shook his head. When the dragon race experts saw the situation, they all shut their mouths and waited for Aolan's explanation. Chapter 2450. Who exactly did the spatial treasure belong to? That was the answer that everyone wanted to know. Actually, even the stupidest person would be able to figure out the answer based on the previous information. However, this answer was too unimaginable. As such, if Big Sister Aolan was not sure, no one would want to believe the answer they came up with. Of course, the spatial treasure belongs to that senior dragon race trader. Big Sister Aolan did not disappoint everyone and said what everyone was waiting for. Hence, there was another problem. Since even Big Sister Aolan did not know where that senior dragon race trader was imprisoned, how did the Zhao clan use the spatial treasure through Long Can? This was a rather long story. Long Can was humiliated by Long Xiong, who was from the same race. In a fit of rage, he killed Long Xiong and became a traitor of the dragon race. However, because Long Can's actions were pardonable, everyone, including Aolan, Long Quang, and the three elders of the Long clan, let Long Can leave. As for the fight between Long Can and Long Quang, both sides had their reasons. Long Can was someone who was easily angered by the discrimination of his race. Furthermore, Long Quang was not a good person either. He was incomparably arrogant. Even when he faced Yang Chun, he behaved that way. One could easily imagine what kind of person he was tens of thousands of years ago. The moment the two of them did not get along, they immediately started fighting. Sparks flew and they started a frenzied battle. Hence, one was severely injured and sealed in ice, while the other was also severely injured but managed to escape. Aolan was somewhat angry because her lover was injured to such a state. However, she endured her anger and saved Long Quang first before chasing after Long Can. In the end, Long Can was discovered by the Zhao clan and a restriction was placed on him. These were all scenarios that everyone could imagine. The root of the problem was that Long Can had accidentally discovered the place where the mysterious traitor of the Dragon clan was imprisoned. Furthermore, because he also had a wood spiritual root, he naturally became that senior spokesperson. Aolan did not know how far that dragon race traitor had gone. However, being able to refine the spiritual world was not something that could be described as ordinary. The reason why Aolan advised Long Can and Long K to stop was because she hoped that they would not continue getting entangled with that dragon race traitor to prevent an even greater disaster from happening. As for the unaware Long Quang, he would naturally listen to whatever Aolan said. Aolan wanted Long Can and Long K to let go. Even though he did not know what it was, he still did his best to persuade them. He was even willing to give up his current body. From his point of view, Long Quang was indeed willing to go through water and tread on fire for his girlfriend. Actually, Aolan still sympathized with Long Can and Long Quebec. Even in this duel, they had not gone all out. Otherwise, with Aolan and Long Quang's cultivation and the help of the Heavenly Essence Pill, they would be more than enough to deal with Long Can and Long Quebec. Perhaps she was still hoping that Long Can and Long K would reveal the location of the traitor and get rid of him once and for all. As for lying to Yang Chun, it was because of the pride of the dragon race. Aolan still hoped that the matters of the dragon race could be resolved within the dragon race. Only when Aolan could no longer protect the dragon race would she let go. This was very strange. Although the entire dragon race knew that fellow was a traitor, Aolan still addressed him as senior. Perhaps this was from the bottom of her heart. However, Yang Chun felt that it was strange. The traitor of the Dragon Clan was very strong, and it was very possible that the reason why Long Can had such a cultivation and why Long K had such a strange method of cultivation all came from the traitor of the Dragon Clan. The traitor of the Dragon Clan must also have an extremely high cultivation. This also explained why Long Can and Long K were able to force the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Zhou Sheng to self-detonate. After all, based on Yang Qin's current combat prowess, they might not be able to block Zhou Sheng. Do you really think that the one with a lower cultivation realm can kill the one with a higher cultivation realm? Ao Lai interjected, using words that he understood to explain. However, the moment Ao Lai finished speaking, he saw the unmoving Yang Chun standing in front of him. He could only pout and add, "The exception is the freak. He cannot be counted." Right after Ao Lai said that, the image of a few beautiful women flashed before his eyes. He glanced at Yang Qin's women in the Dragon Palace and could not help but add in a dejected manner, "The freak's women cannot be counted as well." After Ao Lai added this, Li Cheng's figure suddenly flashed before his eyes. He could only sigh and add, "The freak's friends cannot be counted as well." If these words were said in any other place, it would definitely cause a wave of laughter. However, here, be it the dragon race cultivators or Yang Qin's family and friends in the Dragon Palace, no one laughed. This fellow was speaking the truth. Whether he was right or not, Long Yuan and Long Quang, who had been taught a lesson before, knew it the best. That is to say, our true enemy is actually that traitor of the dragon race. We do not know where he is. Yang Chun concluded and asked, "It is very likely that his cultivation has already surpassed all of us. He is a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal? Didn't you already guess that?" Big sister Ao Lan rolled her eyes at Yang Chun and retorted, "Otherwise, why would you give them 100 years? 100 years might be enough for Long Can and Long K to completely master their cultivation techniques and release that traitor of the dragon race." Yang Chun did not deny it and said directly, "I hope to face a truly strong enemy. Even if Long Can and Long K work together, they might not be a match for Yang Chun." The dragon race experts understood Yang Chin's mentality very well. Many years ago, most of them were in such a state. They felt that there was not much meaning in cultivating unless they ascended to a higher level immortal realm. They longed for the appearance of a strong enemy to stimulate their fighting spirit. Without the Zhao family, the spiritual realm sect would have a long honeymoon period to recover. Without an enemy, Yang Chen indeed felt lonely. Although the cultivation of his friends was not low, they would at most spar and not fight to the death. "A Ling, do your best to refine the demonic realm." After Yang Chen knew the cause and effect, he burst out with unprecedented excitement. He instructed Gong Sunling, "There is no need to care about anything else. Just do your best to refine it. Didn't you want to give Long Can and Long K 100 years to improve?" Ao Lan asked curiously, "Why did you let a Ling refine the spiritual realm? Wouldn't that prevent that senior from cultivating in peace?" Ao Lan could not understand this reason. Even Long Quang and the others could not understand it. On the contrary, Ao Lai, who had been with Yang Chun the longest, understood Yang Chun the best. He directly explained the reason for Yang Chun, because this fellow guessed that the spatial magic treasure is not that traitor senior's life magic treasure. Everyone's eyes lit up. There was such a thing, such a strong spatial magic treasure that could refine the spiritual realm, and most of the demonic realm was actually not that traitor's life magic treasure. How is this possible? What is impossible about it? Ao Lai did not need Yang Chen to explain. He understood for himself. This magic treasure is definitely something like the mountain river geographical map. However, in Senior Ao Guang's treasure trove, the mountain river geographical map is not ranked first. If I guess correctly, that so-called traitor senior should also have a surname Ao, right? Yang Chen followed up decisively. He asked Ao Lan, "Otherwise, big sister, you would not have called him a senior. Am I right?" Chapter 2451. This time, it was big sister Ao Lan's turn to be speechless. She simply could not imagine that Yang Chen was able to determine that Long Ken was not a traitor with just a few words from 1,000 years ago. She was also in disbelief. Just the slight difference in how she addressed him allowed Yang Chen to guess a lot of things. "Ao's son." Big sister Ao Lan did not reply. Instead, it was the Long clan's first elder, the oldest one. He did not even bother to tell Yang Chun whether he was the traitor or not. Instead, he directly told Yang Chun the name of the Dragon Clan traitor. Indeed, he was surnamed Ao, a member of the royal family of the Dragon Clan. Probably only the royal family of the Dragon Clan would Big Sister Ao Lan address them as senior. Although there were not many members of the Dragon Clan, the difference between the royal family and the common people was very clear. When Yang Chun heard this name, he instinctively thought that this person was of the wood attribute. However, he did not know which generation this fellow belonged to. Was he higher or lower than Ao Guang? Ao-san is 2 generations younger than Ao Guang. Since Ao Lan already said Xiao Chen's name, there was no point in hiding many things. Ao Lan might as well give a comprehensive introduction. He is the same as Ao Guang. They are both obsessed with refining. However, their ideals are different. However, the things they refine are basically the same, right? Yang Chun interrupted and asked. That's right. Ao-san was not convinced of Ao Guang's accomplishments. Similarly, he was not convinced of Ao Guang's methods. Thus, he created his own. Big Sister Ao Lan replied with certainty. Although he spoke to Ao-san and Ao Guang in a very respectful tone, he did not have any misgivings when addressing them by their names. Of course, it might also be because the difference in seniority was too great, so he did not know how to address them. He wants to prove that he is stronger than Ao Guang. So the things that Ao Guang refined, he has to use his own method to refine a piece to prove that his set is right. Yang Chun continued to guess. The Long clan's first elder nodded. He turned into a human along with Ao Lan and Long Quan. It looked like he was also shocked by Yang Chen's demonic performance. The dragon race treasures that you obtained from Ao Guang, Sin basically has a set of magic treasures of the same nature. After the great elder of a Long family transformed into a human body and sat down, he slowly said, So, what refined the demon realm and the spiritual realm should be that fake mountain river geographical map. There was actually an imitation of the Dragon Clan's hidden treasure, and it was not a low-grade one at that. This made Yang Chun completely interested. It must be known that the treasures of the Dragon Clan are very important to Yang Chen's family. Not to mention Gong Sunling's Mountain River geographical map, Yang Chen's Golden Bell and Mysterious Sky Dark Sea Shuttle, Gao Yu's Dragon Horn Double Flying Sword, the Murong sisters' 5 elements rope hook, the Dragon Gourd in Hannah Mignot's Medicine Garden, and the sea-pouring Jasper Cup taken by Big Brother Li Chong. The rest is the Dragon Tower with almost complete Dragon Clan inheritance. If I didn't guess wrong, I'm afraid that this senior Ao Sin's magic treasure should be the Dragon Tower, right? Yang Chun asked again. The importance of the Dragon Tower to the Dragon Clan can be seen from the fact that Xiao Tian never left it. Normally, Ao Lan, Ao Lai, and the Long family never concealed their covetous eyes on the Dragon Tower. One can imagine the importance of the Dragon Tower. With the Dragon Tower in hand, not only would he have the complete Dragon Clan inheritance, he could also easily control many things, such as the Dragon Palace. What else could he control? It was not known for the time being. However, it could be imagined that if it was used in battle, its power would be unparalleled. If Ao Sun targeted Ao Guang everywhere, then he would never miss a key magic treasure like the Dragon Tower. With the Dragon Tower, Ao Sun would never use the Mountain River geographical map as his magic treasure. He could control everything by relying on the Dragon Tower. However, this question is destined to be unanswered by anyone for Yang Chun, because even Ao Lan and the others do not know the real answer. The Mountain River geographical map was not Ao Sin's magic treasure. It was Yang Chun who guessed it himself. Probably only he would have the answer. Gong Sunling would never doubt her husband's judgment. Similarly, she would not hesitate to carry out her husband's orders. Just as Yang Chun told her to refine the demonic realm with all her might, Gong Sunling did not hesitate to make her move. There was no need to consider holding back. Gong Sunling immediately gained the upper hand in the battle for the demonic realm. The boundary between the two sides started to visibly shift towards the other side. Yang Chun was very tactful and did not ask Ao San how he became a traitor of the dragon race. This was practically obvious. The things that Yang Chun obtained from the dragon race treasures that Ao Guang left behind were all refined from the bodies of dragons. The water and fire twin dragon horns and dragon beads were real items from the dragon body. The mountain river geographical map was refined from the dragon skin, and there were 3 dragon spirits inside. The 5 elements rope hook was refined from the 5 elements dragon tendons. The mysterious sky dark sea shuttle was refined from the bones of the dragon race, and the sea pouring jasper cup was the skull of a purest water dragon. The golden bell was made from the fusion of countless dragon scales, and there may even be a dragon spirit hidden in it. As for the dragon gourd, it was made from the 2 internal organs of the dragon race. The only raw material that Yang Chun was not clear about was the dragon pagoda. Every time such a magic treasure was refined, the dragon companions had to pay the price of their bodies. Ao Guang estimated that he used a gentle method, such as obtaining materials from some of his dead companions, and won the consent of these companions. Their dragon spirits were immortal as weapon spirits. Therefore, Ao Guang refined so many things and did not become a traitor who killed his own people. He was still the high and mighty East Sea Dragon King. Ao Sun might not be so lucky to get so many ready-made and legal materials to refine magic treasures. Then, in order to compete with Ao Guang, it was easy to understand that Ao Sun used some extreme means to obtain the raw materials to refine magic treasures. If he did not kill his own people, how could he get the items on the dragon's body? Therefore, Ao Sun must be a traitor who killed his own people. As for the respectful tone of elder sister Ao Lon and the Long Clan Great Elder, on one hand, it might be to show respect for Ao Sen's seniority, and, on the other hand, it should be to show respect for his outstanding refining skills. Of course, even Ao Lon was not very sure about all this. It was unknown how many years had passed. Even the oldest Long Clan Great Elder could only listen to the legends of the elders to know. Ao Lon said that it was a legend, so it was easier to understand. Your ancestors captured Ao's son and imprisoned him in a top-secret formation, but they did not tell you the specific location. They really did it. Understanding this, Yang Chun could not help but complain to the ancestors of the dragon race. Such a dangerous traitor of the same race, they actually did not say in detail. He really did not know what kind of mentality the ancestors of the dragon race had at that time. It is very easy to understand. Those who knew could not answer, but Ao Lai, who was completely ignorant, gave the answer with certainty. Chapter 2452. Everyone's eyes were focused on Ao Lai's face. Ao Lai seemed to enjoy this momentary attention. After a moment of pride, he opened his mouth to explain. That's because this ancestor was very talented. Ao Lai's words were extremely shocking. He went straight to the heart of the problem. At that time, the ancestors of the dragon race could not be sure that what they insisted on was correct. Thus, they left ancestor Ao San alive to give the dragon race a way out. Once senior Ao Guang's path is blocked, perhaps the dragon race's hope lies with Ao San, right? Yang Chun continued Ao Lai's analysis. I believe it's that simple. Ao Lai shrugged and quickly concluded. To put it bluntly, it's just a conflict between the dragon race and the Dao demon race. It had to be said that when Ao Lai had been restricted to his dragon spirit form in the Lang Well, he had thought about many things by himself. For many things, it was very easy to get an answer that was closest to the truth from the perspective of benefits. If this problem happened between humans or other races, what kind of crime was it to kill one's own kind? Not to mention far away. Just the Yang Chen's family alone had an unknown number of blood debts from the cultivators of the same race. But the Yang Chun family had never been accused of human traitors. Just as Ao Lai had said, the conflict between cultivation ideals was actually a conflict between the Dao demon race and the Dao demon race. Putting aside the fact that the Dragon Clan had yet to figure it out, this problem had never been completely resolved since the beginning of the cultivation world. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been an irreconcilable enmity between the Dao sects and the demon sects since ancient times. Because the dragon race was too few in numbers, they were extremely cautious about certain things that other races did not think were worth mentioning. However, This was the dragon race's problem. Yang Chun and the others had no reason or right to criticize the dragon race's actions. They could only let the dragon race deal with it themselves. Husband, the other party has also increased the power of the refinement. As they were discussing, Gong Sunling suddenly said to Yang Chun, he also sent a message. See you in 100 years. His name is A.O. Sr. Previously, everyone had been guessing. Now that A.O.'s son had openly revealed his identity, it confirmed all their guesses. Everyone no longer needed a guess. Everything had a definite explanation. Even Yang Chen's intention of leaving Long Can and Long K 100 years in the other party space was guessed by A.O. San, who was behind him. Moreover, A.O. San made it clear that he would have to wait 100 years for the duel. Now, even if A.O. Lan and the Long Clan First Elder had any other thoughts, they could not voice them. Furthermore, A.O. Lan had been having a headache about how to deal with this legendary traitor ancestor. From now on, he would no longer have a headache. He just had to wait 100 years for the decisive battle between Yang Chun and the other party. Yang Chun, this ancestor of ours, is very strong. At this point, A.O. Lan would not hesitate to stand on Chun. Not to mention that A.O. Sin's actions had broken through A.O. Lan's bottom line, just the favor that A.O. Lan, Long Quang, and the Long Clan's experts owed to Yang Chun would not allow her to make any other choice. It is rumored that when he was imprisoned, he was already a peak golden immortal. After so many years, he is probably already a perfected golden immortal, A.O. Lan said straightforwardly. Rumor has it that when he was imprisoned, he was already a peak golden immortal. After so many years, he is probably already a perfected golden immortal, A.O. Lan said straightforwardly. The battle between the dragon race had already ended. Furthermore, given A.O. Sin's seniority and cultivation, A.O. Lan would not be able to forcefully eliminate him. After that, the battle became between Yang Chun and A.O. Senator Hintz. A.O. Lan had to tell Xiao Chun about A.O. Sin's strength. When he was imprisoned, A.O. Sun was already a peak golden immortal. Even Long Can and Long K had advanced from peak heavenly immortal to peak golden immortal. One could easily imagine how strong A.O. Sin's cultivation had become after cultivating for a long time. As A.O. Lai said, this might be another choice of the dragon race. The ancestor who imprisoned A.O. San would not have suppressed his cultivation. Perhaps it was the opposite. Although he was imprisoned, he was actually nurturing A.O. San in secret, steadily improving, just like the dragon puppet back then. In other words, Yang Chun was likely to face a powerful opponent at the early stage of perfected golden immortal, or even at the late stage. At the thought of this, Yang Chun could not help but be excited. Not only Yang Chun, but even Li Chong was interested. He began to instruct Yang Chun on how to prepare. Yang Chun's family began to improve rapidly again. The Joint Command had basically completely withdrawn from the Mountain River geographical map and returned to the spiritual realm. The Zhao family had been eliminated, and that dragon race expert was simply Yang Lan's path. The higher-ups of the various parties naturally would not have unrealistic fantasies. In addition, there were many things waiting to be done in the spiritual realm. Naturally, most of them would return to the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm was the base camp of all parties, and no one would give it up. On the Mountain River geographical map, each party only left one or two contacts. Firstly, to maintain the contact between Yang Chen's family and the various parties. Secondly, to actually check the progress of the competition between the two parties. In their hearts, all parties had completely given up on the Dragon Can and handed over the task of resisting and eliminating the Dragon Can to Yang Chen's family. This was also good. Yang Chen's family would not destroy the balance that had been re-established in the spiritual realm in the Mountain River geographical map, and Chunyang Palace could also develop normally without the influence of Yang Lan's cheating, which was beneficial to both sides. This arrangement could be said to be a happy one for all parties. Yang Chun also acquiesced to such an arrangement. In fact, everyone had a tacit understanding that when Yang Chen's family solved the Dragon Can and the refined spiritual realm, it would be the time for Yang Chen's family to ascend. Instead, all parties took advantage of this time to repair their relationship with Chunyang Palace. Yang Chun was not the only genius alchemist in Chunyang Palace now. Yang Chen's disciple Mo Chunmei had shown no less talent than Yang Chun, and she was also the focus of all parties. In the face of a strong enemy like Ao San, Yang Chun also devoted 100% of his energy to cultivation and experience, striving to reach his best state after 100 years. He was using the powerful Ao San to put pressure on himself so that he could improve quickly. It was not that Tianyuan Dan was not fast enough, but this kind of improvement without pressure would give Yang Chun a sense of ease, which was not the effect he wanted. After ascending to the immortal world, he still had to face the powerful immortal world's Xiantian sect, which was Yang Chen's last opponent. Of course, there were also the remnants of the immortal world's Zhao family. Knowing that Yang Chun had ruined the great events of their mortal world and the spiritual realm, he would definitely not let Yang Chun have a good time in the immortal world. At that time, Yang Chun would definitely not only face almighty immortals, but also countless 10,000 tribulation true immortals. Even with Madame Bai and Ancestor Lu as the background, it would be extremely difficult. So from now on, Yang Chun had to make all the proper preparations in the spiritual realm. Chapter 2453. Rushing to refine the demon realm was not as difficult as previously imagined, but it was not so easy either. At least Gong Sunling's side still occupied the absolute upper hand, but the speed of refining was very speechless. In the past, when Gong Sunling refined the demon realm, it was a rapid advancement. Of course, that was when there was no opponent to snatch it from herself. But now, even if Gong Sunling had the upper hand, it was only advancing 1 foot at a time. The other party did not completely give up and was still resisting, but he could not stop the crazy advancement of Gong Sunling and could only slow down this trend as much as possible. In this way, not to mention 100 years, it would take another 1,000 years to refine this 60% of the demon realm. Yang Chun could imagine that this was the other party's means to temper his own cultivation base, and Yang Chun would also join in. With the control of Gong Sunling and the third primordial spirit, Yang Chun didn't have to worry about the refining process at all, as long as the speed was accelerated. At this time, the second primordial spirit finally came in handy. To be exact, it was the immortal beheading blade controlled by the second primordial spirit. Of course, since the immortal beheading blade was out, Xiao Tian must be unwilling to be left out and also participated. Not only that, Xiao Tian even brought out the Dragon Pagoda. After Yang Chun analyzed that the Dragon Pagoda might be the key to controlling all the magic weapons in the treasure house of the Dragon Clan, Xiao Tian was not calm. This was a good thing that he had never thought of, and the key was that the credibility was extremely high. Not to mention anything else, just looking at the Dragon Pagoda that could smoothly control so many dragon palaces. Perhaps this was the tradition of the Dragon Clan, or something that was indispensable. Otherwise, why would every Dragon Clan leave an identical base that could be controlled by the Dragon Pagoda when they refine their Dragon Palace? Although similar things have not been seen on other magic weapons, since Yang Chun analyzed it like this, how could Xiao Tian miss it? Even if the treasures of the Dragon Clan had been divided by Yang Chen's family and friends, wasn't there still a set on Ao Sen's side? Judging from the fact that Xiao Tian never gave Yang Chun the inheritance of the Dragon Clan and the Dragon Pagoda, Xiao Tian was definitely a greedy guy. With such a good opportunity to obtain more of the Dragon Clan's treasures, he would absolutely not let it go. However, since Ao San might be a great principal golden immortal, then Xiao Tian must also strengthen his own cultivation. Xiao Tian's unique physique allowed him to withstand at least 2 Tianyuan Dan's medicinal effects, and then he used some of the inheritance of the Dragon Clan in the Dragon Tower to cultivate, and his cultivation base improved faster than that of Yang Chun. Freaks are really surrounded by freaks. This was Ao Lai's definition of Yang Chun, the cultivators and the demon pets around him. Especially when he found that his cultivation base was not as fast as Xiao Tian's with the help of Tianyuan Dan, he was even more convinced of this. He was unaware that his cultivation base was so terrifying and fast. In the eyes of other people in the Long family, he was already a freak. Yang Chun had not had the opportunity to go all out for a long time, and now he finally found a place to use it. He didn't have to participate in the process of Gong Sunling and the third primordial spirit refining the demon realm, as long as he used the immortal beheading blade to attack with all his strength. The target of the attack was the part of the demon realm that was refined by A.O. Sin's Mountain River geographical map. In this part of the demon realm, there were no other living creatures except the crazy monster beasts. Yang Chun did not have to worry about any accidental injuries and the like. At the same time, now he was in the Mountain River geographical map. Even if he released his killing intent, it would not affect the cultivators outside the spiritual world. After absorbing and refining so many blood corpses killing intent in the immortal beheading stage, Yang Chun had not released it to his heart's content. This time, he also found an opportunity to release it, allowing Yang Chun to vent it to his heart's content, but also a deeper level of integration. Yang Chun stood on the boundary between the two sides. The immortal beheading blade was raised high and slashed down heavily. It contained the power of Yang Chen's whole body. It contained the spiritual power of Yang Chen's whole body. It contained the maximum increase in power of Shao Tian, and it also contained the power of the Dragon Pagoda that Shao Tian deliberately used. The blade slashed on the land of the demon realm that was refined by A.O. Senator Qi. The sound of a sharp weapon breaking through the air sounded on the ground, and a blade aura was very obvious along the direction of Yang Chen's blade, and it quickly passed to the distance. A long while later, an extremely muffled, rumbling sound was faintly emitted from the depths of the ground, after which, within one sight, the entire ground seemed to have been overturned by an enormous force, flipping from the bottom to the top. Boom! A huge sound wave resounded through the sky. Under the exploration of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, the entire space of thousands of miles was smashed by Yang Chen's blade. Countless fragments flew all over the sky, and the air was involuntarily contaminated with a fierce, killing intent. It was as if each fragment had become the most ferocious killing weapon in the world in an instant. The killing intent was so strong that even one of the hapless and crazed Yao beasts within the area was instantly terrified. What happened next shocked all the cultivators there. That crazy demon beast didn't have the slightest bit of craziness. It curled up into a ball and wrapped its tail tightly around its body, as if it was trying to cover itself up. It was shivering all over, just like a frightened puppy. Where was the slightest trace of a crazy demon beast? In the next moment, the monster was smashed into pieces. The frenzied killing intent instantly destroyed the aura of the owner of this space and the dense demonic qi. In the blink of an eye, the third primordial spirit completely ignored the killing intent and quickly enveloped the space within a radius of several thousand miles, refining it with all its might. Even if all the cultivators in the world were afraid of this extremely fierce killing intent, the third primordial spirit would not be afraid. As the third primordial spirit split from Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, how could it be afraid of the killing intent released by Yang Chen? In less than a dozen breaths of time, the original aura of the thousands of miles of space was completely refined by the second primordial spirit, no longer existing, and then firmly replaced with the aura of the Mountain River geographical map. In other words, in these 10 breaths of time, the owner of this space had successfully changed, becoming a space refined by the Mountain River geographical map. Yang Chen's blade was enough to save Gong Sunling a year of time to snatch and refine it. The Mountain River geographical map might be lacking in other things, but did not lack spiritual veins and spiritual power. Yang Chen's blade consumed a lot of spiritual power, but Gong Sunling immediately sent hundreds of Xian immortal-level spiritual veins to Yang Chun, wishing that she could wrap Yang Chun with spiritual veins. Yang Chun only rested for a moment. His figure flashed and appeared at the new boundary line, and then, according to the situation just now, he chopped down again. This method began to repeat. Gong Sunling and the third primordial spirit also cooperated tacitly. Under the joint efforts of the three parties, the speed of snatching the monster world had already caught up with the speed of refining the monster world when there was no competition. Chapter 2454. In this way, the speed of Gong Sunling's refining of the demon realm was rapidly improved, and Yang Chen was also able to review and practice the attack methods that he could imagine countless times in an all-round way in the process of first destroying and then refining. In the past, Yang Chen had never had such an opportunity. He could only simulate it in his imagination and sea of consciousness, and had never really used it. On the one hand, the power of Yang Chen's attacks was too great, so great that if he attacked with all his strength, he was afraid that within a radius of thousands of miles, it would definitely become a barren land. No matter how powerful the cultivators were, they were powerless in the face of Yang Chen's attack. Only the mountain river geographical map, which had refined more than half of the demon realm, could withstand it. Even ordinary space magic weapons, including some immortal abode-level magic weapons of Super Sect, were not enough in front of Yang Chen's immortal beheading blade. With the power of the two parts of the immortal beheading blade in the mortal world and the spiritual world, it was simply the simplest thing to cut through the space, and this did not include the terrifying increase of Shao Tian. With one blade, no matter how powerful the space magic weapon was, under Yang Chen's blade, it could only be tofu dregs. There were not many such attack methods. Yang Chen's immortal beheading blade and Shi Shanshan's supreme pure Yang sword cheese full blow basically had such an effect. However, this did not mean that the defensive power of the space magic weapon was insufficient, but such an attack method was too rare. Even if there was, it could only be within a limited range. Even Yang Chen's strongest range was only a few thousand miles, which was not enough to completely destroy the entire space. Even Gong Sunling's mountain river geographical map could not completely block Yang Chen's full blow. Similarly, just like Yang Chen's attack on Ao Sen's mountain river geographical map, he could only destroy thousands of miles. For Ao Sen's space magic weapon that had 60% of the demon realm, such an attack would not move. If Yang Chen attacked for decades, he might be able to break through most of the space, but it would not completely destroy Ao Sen's mountain river geographical map. On the other hand, the release of Yang Chen's killing intent was also a problem. If he didn't know that Yang Chen was an executioner of the immortal beheading blade, it was estimated that as long as he released his killing intent, he would definitely be regarded as a murderous demon. Even if he was not misunderstood now, Yang Chen could not casually release his killing intent in the spiritual world. That would cause great panic. In addition, this killing intent was also a big killer weapon of Yang Chen, which could not be exposed casually to everyone. However, Yang Chen spared no effort in attacking the opponent's space in the mountain river geographical map, and all the attack methods that could be imagined have been displayed again. The target was Ao Sen's space. It could be imagined that Ao Sen would be very clear about it. He could even clearly feel the power of Yang Chen's attack. He would unknowingly have an invisible fear of Yang Chen's attack power. This was done on purpose by Yang Chen. He wanted to let his opponent know his attack methods clearly. This was an overt plot. At that time, even if Yang Chen used these upright attacks, his opponent could only think of a way to receive them. Otherwise, if a dignified senior expert had to roll around miserably in front of Yang Chen, Ao Sen would be ashamed to death without anyone saying anything. Actually, this method was the same as Ao Lan's continuous roar to increase his aura when he challenged Long, Can, and Long Quebec. However, Yang Chen achieved this by attacking his opponent's space-time and time again. Yang Chen was never tired of this. On one hand, this method was indeed beneficial in helping Gong Sunling refine the demon realm. On the other hand, besides accumulating power, Yang Chen could also systematically summarize his own attack methods. It was much more effective than imagining and simulating in his sea of consciousness. This was cultivation. It cannot be denied that this method of cultivation was very effective. Every once in a while, Big Brother Li Cheng would appear in front of Yang Chen. Probably from the verbal test of Yang Chen's understanding, he would also give some advice in words, and then he would go to the Dragon Palace to rest. While Yang Chen was cultivating, the women and his friend from the dragon race did not stop either. They were all focused on cultivating. In the blink of an eye, 50 years passed. During these 50 years, Yang Chen cultivated nonstop in the mountain river geographical map. Aside from the recovery time after each attack, there was basically no rest time. He also did not have any intention of leaving the mountain river geographical map. During this time, Yang Chen's disciples all came to pay their respects to their masters and wives. Yang Chen also gave them some pointers. Like Mu Bo, Yi Yu, and the others, there was even a period of time when they learned how Yang Chen attacked Ao Sen's mountain river geographical map to experience the process of each attack and accumulate combat experience. After so many years, Yang Chen did not know how much of Ao Sen's space had been destroyed. According to Gong Suanling's calculations, she had almost refined 90% of the demon realm. In other words, Ao Sen's mountain river geographical map only controlled 10% of the demon realm at most. Of course, the core area of the demon realm was also excluded. Yang Chen's cultivation had already steadily increased to the early golden immortal stage. 50 years of wholehearted cultivation, allowing the medicinal effect of the heavenly Yuan Dan to be greatly absorbed. Fortunately, he did not control too much and did not attract the heavenly tribulation. But this also meant that Yang Chen's combat power was no less than 10 times stronger than 50 years ago. At least from the attack range, it had basically reached a radius of 10,000 miles. Everything happened in a very orderly manner. However, when Yang Chen swung his saber this time, he clearly felt that something was different. This area was completely different from the previous areas. It was unknown how much stronger it was. Even with Yang Chen's strength, one saber strike could only destroy an area of several hundred miles. This was something that Yang Chen had never encountered after entering the golden immortal stage. At first, Yang Chen thought that this was just a strange area. He did not expect that this was just the beginning. After continuously hacking at this speed for several thousand miles, he could only destroy 50 miles if he continued. After a period of time, the area that Yang Chen could destroy became smaller and smaller. His final saber strike could only destroy a radius of 500 miles. This was clearly not the most crucial area of Ao Sen's space. So why was there such a strange phenomenon? Yang Chen believed that his offensive power did not decrease. So this phenomenon was very strange. Gong Sunling had already checked and found that there were no problems with the refined spaces. The only difference was that Ao Sen's space was sufficiently hard. After being refined, it became an ordinary space. It was very strange. Do you like this surprise? Just as Yang Chen was feeling puzzled, a few large words suddenly appeared in front of him. Behind the large words was a laughing face and Ao Sen's name. Chapter 2455. Was this considered a pleasant surprise? Yang Chen was a bit disapproving of Ao Sen's arrangement. If Yang Chen had used his own means to help Gong Sunling speed up the process of refining the space, then now it was Ao Sen's counterattack. Ao Sen did not know what method he used to make the space in his mountain river geographical map incomparably hard. Even if it was Yang Chen, even if he used the amplification ability of Shao Tian and used the beheading immortal saber, at this moment with one saber strike, it could only cover a radius of about 1 kilometer. In other words, the process of refining the demon realm was greatly slowed down. The current speed was already infinitely close to the time when Gong Sunling and Ao Sen were fighting over the demon realm. At this time, Ao Sen made this kind of counterattack Yang Chen could easily understand. When a space was refined, the power of the entire mountain river geographical map would greatly increase. This was not false. However, after more than half of the space was snatched away, leaving only a small part, the control would instead greatly increase. Being able to do this to this extent was not surprising. Previously, Yang Chen used the beheading immortal saber attack to accumulate power, and now Ao Sen was using this method to counterattack. Aren't your attacks sharp? Right now, there was a way to make Yang Chen's attacks less sharp. Previously, The momentum of advancing forward was suddenly slowed down, and then it became slower and slower, and the momentum that he had gathered with great difficulty would also slowly dissipate. It could not be helped that Ao-san was also a smart guy. He knew how to deal with Yang-chun. Interesting. Yang-chun's face also bloomed with a smile. Things had reached this stage. It could be said that it was a little interesting. Otherwise, if he were to sing a one-man show to the end, it would be a boring thing. Both sides had to interact with each other. It would make people feel the most happy. Ao-san gave Yang-chun a problem, and Yang-chun began to think of ways to solve it. However, before breaking it, Yang-chun had to first figure out what technique his opponent had used to block his attack. It had to be known that Yang-chun wielded the Immortal Beheading Saber, which had been fused with the Diamond Chakram, the Immortal Beheading Platform's door, and the Immortal Beheading Platform's corpse dump. Yang-chun's body had also been fused with the killing intent of the previous executioners of the Immortal Beheading Platform. Even if he couldn't unleash the full might of the Immortal Beheading Platform, he could still unleash 30% of its power. If the power of Shao Tian is also counted, the power of the Immortal Beheading Blade can be increased to 40% of the Immortal Beheading Blade in the Immortal Beheading stage. With such power, it was almost impossible for it to be thwarted by a geographical map refined by a dragon in the spirit realm. However, something that was impossible in theory had already happened. Yang-chun did not need to worry about whether it should happen or not. Instead, he needed to find a solution. From the side of Gong Sunling and the third primordial spirit, the news that Yang-chun got was that the space after the refinement was very normal, and it was no different from the previous refinement. Even when encountering a crazy monster that had been refined, there was no difference in the performance of the Mountain River geographical map. This showed that it was not the other party who had done something to the space. It could only be other methods. The most likely one was the formation, and it was simply too simple to reinforce a certain area with the formation. However, if it could withstand the power of the Immortal Beheading Blade, it was not an ordinary formation, and it was worth Yang-chun's in-depth study. Yang-chun no longer blindly moved his blade, but when he slashed with all his strength, he sent his spiritual awareness into it and followed the blade aura into the other party's space to see what was going on. After dozens of slashes, Yang-chun did not find a trace of the formation, which was very strange. However, Yang-chun found that as he moved forward, the space was getting firmer and firmer, and the range of Yang-chun's attack was getting smaller and smaller. This was equivalent to the feeling that Yang-chun was walking to the center of a sphere that was getting denser and denser. According to Yang-chun's guess, he could not find the trace of the formation now, because he had not yet reached the exact location of the formation. As for the space getting firmer and firmer, it was because the power of the formation had affected the surroundings. In other words, Yang-chun had not touched the edge of the formation, and the area affected by the formation had blocked Yang-chun for so long. If he really reached the area of the formation, how strong would the space be? How much effort would it take for Yang-chun to break it? Gong Sunling specialized in formations, but she never knew that there was such a powerful formation that could strengthen the space. In Yang-chun's mind, there had never been such a powerful formation that could resist the power of the Immortal Beheading Blade. This strange situation even attracted Big Brother Li Cheng's attention, and he specially came over to take a look. However, Big Brother Li Cheng seemed to have thrown everything to Yang-chun. At most, he just moved his mouth, and everything was done by Yang-chun. Big Brother Li Cheng took a few glances, but he did not find the exact secret. However, his opinion was similar to Yang-chun's. He just had not found the exact location of the formation. Big Brother Li Cheng casually gave Yang-chun a suggestion, telling him to continue forward until he found the formation. As for Big Brother Li Cheng himself, he hid in the Dragon Palace and continued to recuperate, enjoying the leisurely life that others could not. Yang-chun did not change his direction. Ever since he discovered this strange situation, he had been moving forward fiercely in the same direction. No matter how strong the space in front of him was, or how hard it was to break, Yang-chun did not retreat at all. He did not even have the intention to take a detour. He wanted to use this small setback to stop himself, to create a psychological setback, and to weaken his momentum. Aosin's thinking was too simple. Not to mention this life. Even in his previous life, Yang Chun had experienced more than 10,000 years of torment. Even then, his desire for revenge did not weaken. After experiencing so many things in this life and cultivating to this realm, he was many times stronger than in his previous life. Could it be that his mental state was inferior to his previous life? The more Ao-sun wanted to slow down Yang Chun, the more valiant Yang Chen's fighting spirit became. The saber that he slashed out became more resolute, and there was no hindrance in his advance. However, as Yang Chun continued to advance, the attack range of the Immortal beheading saber decreased from a radius of 5 kilometers to the current range of several hundred meters. Then, it became smaller and smaller, becoming several hundred meters. Finally, it became several dozen meters. This was the result of the space shattering under Yang Chen's attack. If Yang Chun only used the Immortal beheading saber to slash, regardless of whether the space would shatter or not, the attack range would be much larger. Just on this path of getting closer to the array formation, Yang Chun spent a year. When Yang Chen's saber slashed down, he was only able to shatter a radius of 3 meters. His spiritual sense, which had been immersed in the saber chi, finally detected something different. The space in front of him was extremely dense and firm. When the saber chi touched it, there was no reaction. There was a very strong spiritual energy fluctuation coming from that direction. Yang Chen's heart was immediately filled with joy. After such a long time, Yang Chun finally touched the edge of the array formation. He finally knew what kind of array formation it was. Chapter 2456. It was so strong. In the eyes of almost all the cultivators who knew about it, this was a protective formation. Yang Chun also thought so subconsciously. When he came into contact with the edge of the formation, even if he didn't understand the mystery of the formation, he could be sure in an instant that this formation was indeed defensive in nature. The first time Yang Chun informed Gong Sunling. In fact, there was no need for Yang Chun to specifically tell it. Yang Chen's third primordial spirit could know. When the third primordial spirit knew it, it immediately fed back to Gong Sunling. In the next moment, Gong Sunling appeared behind Yang Chun. As an array cultivator, she encountered such a magical protective formation that she had never seen before, especially the formation that was arranged in a life source magic weapon similar to her own. How could Gong Sunling not be interested in it and immediately wanted to study it? Yang Chen was cautious and stopped Gong Sunling's move. After all, this was in the other party's space. Yang Chun could not be too careful. The Immortal beheading blade grew, and under the control of Xiao Tian, it easily became dozens of feet long, easily piercing the protective formation and did not damage the formation at all. This was the unique ability of the Immortal beheading saber to pierce through space after fusing with the gate of the Immortal beheading platform and the corpse disposal hole. The principle was similar to how piercing a hole in a wall with a needle would not affect the integrity of the entire wall, but through this method, some things within the formation could be explored. Along with the Immortal beheading blade, it was not only Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, but also Xiao Tian's. This formation was clearly arranged by Ao-sun, so it must be related to the Dragon Clan. Could this guy not be interested? The space inside the formation was very strange. Even Yang Chen's peak, great principle, golden immortal spiritual awareness felt very difficult to penetrate. It seemed to be the most viscous liquid that had solidified. The spiritual awareness of the great principle, golden immortal, could only penetrate a few feet at most and could no longer go deeper. This was not the kind of special material that could not be penetrated by spiritual awareness at all. It was completely the effect of the formation. It must be said that the Dragon Clan was indeed unique in the study of certain formations. From Xiao Tian's feedback, Xiao Tian did not find anything similar in the Dragon Pagoda. This could only mean that this formation was unique to Ao Senator. Perhaps he had figured it out during his imprisonment. The only good thing was that the sharpness of the Immortal beheading saber was not affected. It could be easily stabbed and taken out. Yang Chun could study it carefully from all directions. Otherwise, he might not be able to figure out the truth behind the formation. In fact, at this point, Yang Chun was completely relieved. Since the array could not withstand the sharpness of the immortal beheading saber, then breaking the array was a piece of cake. It was just that he felt that this formation was not bad and had value in learning from it. That was why he did not break it with brute force. Speaking of which, when the Zhao family besieged Mu Bo and Yiyu, they used a variant of the Dragon Clan's Trap Dragon formation. Later, they used an advanced variant of the Trap Dragon formation. Now Yang Chun felt that the current protective formation vaguely had a shadow of the Trap Dragon formation, but it turned the siege into a stable space. He believed that after a period of time, Gong Sunling would be able to easily solve the mystery of the formation. In the process of his own cultivation, he could also let Gong Sunling learn a new kind of formation, which was also a good thing. In particular, this formation could still be used in the Mountain River geographical map, which could make Gong Sunling even more powerful. With this formation, in the future, even if Gong Sunling encountered a master like Shi Shanshan, the overbearing and invincible opponent, she could use this formation and the Mountain River geographical map to resist one or two. Yang Chun, the second primordial spirit, the third primordial spirit, Gong Sunling, Xiao Tian, began to study this powerful formation from several directions. For this reason, Yang Chun deliberately looked for several directions, touched the edge of the formation, used the immortal beheading saber to explore, and finally understood the situation of the formation in an all-round way. This research alone took Yang Chun and the others 2 years, and it was regarded as a general understanding of the formation. To be more specific, Gong Sunling needed to conduct various experiments in the Mountain River geographical map, and directly from the arranged formation, there was no more reference. At this point, Yang Chun stopped his research and then waved the immortal beheading saber from several directions. He cut off several key nodes of the protective formation that they had studied. When these nodes were broken, the whole formation could no longer maintain its balance. After a burst of invisible cracking sound, Yang Chun felt that the front of him was light, as if the solid space had been broken, and it was a lot easier. Just in front of this formation, it took more than 3 years, but the delay of this time did not weaken Yang Chun's fighting spirit in the slightest. On the contrary, it became more and more high-spirited and courageously moved forward. After the formation was broken, Yang Chun immediately felt that the pressure was almost no weaker than the previous formation. The immortal beheading saber slashed down. It was still the same effect as before, and the scope of influence was no more than 10 feet. The sudden pressure made Yang Chun look forward again. He seemed to see Ao Sun smiling in the shadow in front of him, laughing at himself. "Do you really think that you can stop me like this?" Yang Chun laughed coldly, and he waved the immortal beheading saber again, walking forward. Along the way, Yang Chun broke 7 similar formations in a row. Including the one from before, there was a total of 8 different formations that Yang Chun broke. In total, it took Yang Chun 10 years. Yang Chun was very clear about Ao Sen's methods. He wanted to use this kind of method, which was different every time, to make Yang Chun feel annoyed, to make him feel unhappy, and to break down Yang Chun's fighting spirit. However, since Yang Chun had already seen through Ao Sen's methods, how could he fall for it? However, Ao Sun still succeeded in making Yang Chun less meticulous. When another similar formation appeared in front of Yang Chun subconsciously raised the immortal beheading saber. The feeling that this formation gave him was still very similar. After experiencing the first 8 formations, Yang Chun's desire to study this formation had become much smaller. It was just a slight change here and there. The overall principle did not change, and there was not much value in researching it. Thus, when facing this formation, Yang Chun only felt it for a moment before raising the immortal beheading saber and slashing down with all his might. This was a familiar movement. The previous formations had been broken in this manner, and the formation in front of him was the same. However, after slashing down, Yang Chun suddenly discovered that the feeling of this formation breaking was completely different from the previous 8 formations. It was not a soft shattering sound, but a loud explosion. Ha ha ha! The loud laughter mixed with the rumbling noise passed into Yang Chen's ears. And then there was a voice that he had never heard before. Thank you. Chapter 2457. The moment Yang Chun heard this voice, he felt a sense of foreboding. The formation before him was completely different. I fell for it. That voice only rang out once before it went silent. The owner of the voice was probably no longer there. Big sister, according to the legends of your dragon race, which mysterious formation is Ao, sun, imprisoned in? Without even thinking, Yang Chun got his 3rd primordial spirit to send him back to Big Sister Ao landside. Before Big Sister Ao Lan could ask anything, Yang Chun had already asked in a hurry. Since it is a mysterious formation, of course, we do not know. Big Sister Ao Lan did not know what happened. She replied subconsciously, "What's wrong?" "You know." Yang Chun smiled bitterly and nodded. Then he asked again, "Then, did your ancestor leave behind any relevant information?" Hearing Yang Chun admit it, Big Sister Ao Lan's eyes immediately lit up. However, she was also confused by Yang Chun's question. What did Yang Chun mean by this? Although she was confused, Ao Lan still gave face and started to think. It was not just Big Sister Ao Lan. Even the 3 senior elders of the Long clan started to think. After thinking for a long time, the Long clan first elder suddenly thought of something and said, "I got it." The moment he spoke, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. Yang Chen's sudden return had startled everyone in the Dragon Palace. Yang Chen's wives and concubines were all here. Madame Bai Lin Jingyuan also rushed over. Even big brother Li Cheng carried an exquisite wine flask and sat there, waiting to hear Yang Chen's story. Back then, the ancestor left a message. Either Ao Sin's cultivation was strong enough, and he understood and broke out of the formation on his own. The first elder said unhurriedly, or he had a great opportunity and met an expert who did not care about the spatial formation. He broke out of the formation from the outside. Everyone was thinking about the meaning of these 2 sentences. Big Sister Ao Lan also nodded to indicate that she remembered it as well. However, Ao Lan quickly asked, "Earlier, you said that you discovered the location of that formation?" "I didn't just discover it." Yang Chun smiled bitterly. "I split the formation with 1 slash." "What do you mean?" Ao Lan's gaze revealed great confusion. He stared at Yang Chun from top to bottom, waiting for him to explain. It was not just Big Sister Ao Lan. The others all had the same expression, waiting for Yang Chun to give an explanation. Only big brother Li Cheng seemed to instantly understand the whole story. He took a sip of wine, nodded and said with a smile, "Interesting, interesting." Everyone was wondering about the same thing. All these years, Yang Chun had been the mountain river geographical map, helping to cut down the other party's mountain river geographical map. He had never taken a step out. So how did he discover the formation imprisoning Ao Sun? Since he had never left the mountain river geographical map, how did he cut open the formation with 1 slash? Where's that array? Could it be? An inconceivable thought suddenly appeared in everyone's mind. Could it be that the formation was actually in Ao Sin's mountain river geographical map? How is this possible? Although Ao Sin's mountain river geographical map was not Ao Sin's life bonded magic treasure, it was still indirectly controlled by Ao Senator just from the fact that Ao Sun controlled the mountain river geographical map to refine 60% of the demon realm and even nearly refine the spiritual realm. It showed that Ao Sun had never lost control of the mountain river geographical map. Since Ao Sun could control the mountain river geographical map, how could he be imprisoned in the mountain river geographical map? Who did not know the might of the mountain river geographical map? As long as its master willed it, what kind of formation could block its master's attack? The 8 layers of defensive formations were to prevent Ao Sun from using the power of the mountain river geographical map to break the formation. Gong Sunling was the first to react. She immediately exclaimed, "The final formation was used to imprison Ao Sun." That is indeed the case. Yang Qin's bitter smile became even more intense. I just personally released Ao's son from the formation that imprisoned him. The dragon race's ancestors were indeed imaginative. Who would have thought that the place where Ao's son was imprisoned was in a magic treasure controlled by Ao's son? No wonder no one in the dragon race was able to guess where Ao's son was imprisoned. It was a place that no one would suspect. Using a formation to block Yang Chun was to obstruct Yang Chun and to prevent Yang Chun from accumulating power. It was simply a trap. Even the entire Mountain River geographical map was a gift sent to Yang Chen's doorstep. It was all for the sake of getting Yang Chun to help open the imprisonment formation. Even though Ao's son could control the Mountain River geographical map to refine the demon realm and the spiritual realm, he had no way to refine the prison that was right in front of him. The dragon race's expert who imprisoned Ao's son had indeed made an ingenious plan. It was impossible to guard against. Ao's son was smart enough. Borrowing the chance of Long Can coming into contact with the Mountain River geographical map, he established a connection with Long Can. While giving Long Can many pointers, he also started to use the Zhao clan's ambition to refine the demon realm. In any case, Ao's son believed that as long as he could refine the demon realm and the spiritual realm, as well as the mortal realm and the demonic realm, it would be easy to open the spatial ceiling formation. In fact, he did not even need to refine so much. As long as he could completely refine a realm, he would be able to find the crux to opening the seal. At that time, he would be able to use his own strength to forcefully open the ceiling formation and escape. He did not expect that his plan would change. The demonic realm was refined by Gong Sunling, and the demon realm was snatched away by Gong Sunling. This time, he was unable to meet Ao's son's expectations. He immediately made a prompt decision to refine the spiritual realm. However, when his plan to refine the spiritual realm failed, Ao's son could only settle for the next best thing. He borrowed Gong Sunling's strength to open the ceiling formation. After all, Gong Sunling had completely refined the demonic realm. However, Yang Chen's appearance allowed Ao's son to see an even simpler method. He only needed to guide Yang Chen to the formation. The rest was very simple. He only needed to leave a line of words for Yang Chen. Do you like this surprise? Then they could sit and watch Yang Chen completely destroy the 8 protective formations on the periphery one by one. Originally, Ao's son thought that without the 8 defensive formations, he would be able to break them easily. However, Ao's son discovered that he had underestimated this ceiling formation. He was unable to break it by himself. Fortunately, Yang Chen directly came to the side of the 9th formation, and he didn't even think about it. When he sensed that the seal was completely broken, Ao's son immediately laughed maniacally and thanked Yang Chen at the same time. His long-awaited freedom had finally arrived. In that instant, Ao's son could not contain his joy. Fortunately, after being imprisoned for so many years, his character had become incredibly calm. The moment he broke free, he immediately teleported himself to the safest place and started to adapt to the outside world. As for Yang Chen, he understood what had happened and smiled bitterly. This time, it was indeed beyond Yang Chen's expectations. Ao's son could not disturb the process of Yang Chen's accumulation of power. It was not known how many tens of thousands of years ago the ancestors of the Dragon Clan had successfully set it on fire. Chapter 2458. It could be said that this series of ingenious arrangements caused Yang Chen, who was supposed to be Ao's son's greatest enemy, to become Ao's son's accomplice. However, Yang Chen could not find a suitable target to vent his anger on. This was the first time Yang Chen had been toyed with like this by an enemy. The momentum that he had built up over the past few decades of continuous cultivation had also vanished in an instant. No matter who it was that had been toyed with like this, they probably wouldn't have any momentum left. All that was left was helplessness and anger. Husband, Ao's son challenges you. Just as everyone was still in a daze, Gong Sunling's expression suddenly changed as she spoke to Yang Chen. At the intersection of the two sides, Ao's son was challenging Yang Chen at the moment. Through Gong Sunling and Xiao Chen's primordial spirit, the contents of the challenge were transmitted to Yang Chun. The timing that Ao-san chose was very suitable. It happened to be the moment when Yang Chen's previous efforts had all been exploited and he was fatigued. At this moment, Yang Chen's morale and combat prowess were at their lowest. Furthermore, Ao-san had already anticipated all of this while he was in the formation. He had been at ease and had made ample preparations. It was truly a good plan. However, Yang Chun did not avoid the battle because of this. This was not Yang Chen's style. Since the other party wanted to fight, then he would fight to his heart's content. Earlier, Yang Chun needed to vent his anger from being toyed with. In the next moment, everyone disappeared from the Divine Dragon Palace and appeared at the location of Ao-sen's challenge. Of course, they were all at the location of Gong Sunling's Mountain River geographical map. On the other side, a dark green dragon that was almost black was hovering in the air. Its body swayed as it looked at everyone with bright eyes. There was a confident expression on the dragon's face, as if everything was under control. It was waiting quietly for everyone. Ao-san, the 100 years are not up yet. Are you going back on your word? Before Yang Chun could do anything, Ao-lan had already leaped out. He did not care that Ao-san was one of his ancestors, only focusing on scolding him. The 100-year deadline is the agreement you made with Long Can and Long Quebec. What does it have to do with me? Ao-san smiled coldly at Ao-lan. The people of the dragon race were all startled. Then, they realized that they were truly speechless with Ao-sen's words. At that time, no one knew that there would be such a thing as Ao-san, so the agreement that Yang Chun made was with Long Can and Long Quebec. It really had nothing to do with Ao-senator, however. Right now was the time when Yang Chen's condition was at its worst. Ao-san took advantage of this time to appear. His sinister intentions were clear at a glance. Not bad, not bad. Ao-sen's gaze swept across the cultivators from the Dragon Clan, and a happy smile appeared on his face. All of them are at the Gold Immortal stage. Good. Very good. With this, my magic treasures will be much more complete. With just a few words, it was clear that Ao-san did not care about his fellow clansmen. He only cared about suitable materials and magic treasures. This fellow did not care about these juniors at all. In his heart, he still harbored the mentality of using the bodies of the dragon race to refine magic treasures. It looks like you are very unhappy with Long Can and Long K. After saying that, Ao-sen's gaze returned to Ao-lan. He sized him up from head to toe. This kind of scrutinizing gaze made Ao-lan feel very uncomfortable. Don't worry. Since you are unhappy with the two of them, I can help you vent your hatred. Ao-san smiled as he swept his gaze over the Dragon Clan cultivators. After I deal with you all, I will kill the two of them and refine them into equipment spirits for you to vent your anger. How about that? Are you still a member of the dragon race? Ao-lan shouted at Ao-san, enraged. Is there any difference whether I am a member of the dragon race or not? Ao-san did not care about Ao-lan's attitude. Instead, he smiled even more. Go on and be angry. The angrier you are, the better the effects of the equipment spirits you refine will be. Long Can and Long K recently obtained a pretty good cultivation technique. After you become equipment spirits, you can cultivate that cultivation technique together. When you all become one, you will know how powerful that cultivation technique is. Your opponent is me. Yang Chen's words rang out in Ao-sen's ears. Ao-lan, Long Quang, and the others were already infuriated by Ao-senator. No matter what they did at this moment, it would not be a good thing. Yang Chen's timely words drew Ao-sen's attention to him. What a powerful body tempering technique. Ao-sen's gaze turned to Yang Chun. However, his focus seemed to be different from an ordinary cultivator's. He was not looking at an enemy or the opponent he was about to fight. Instead, he was looking at a very good material for refining magic treasures. I believe that the magic treasure refined from your body will be even more powerful than those of my fellow clansmen over there. As he spoke, Ao-sen's eyes lit up. When his gaze swept over the beheading immortal saber and Shao Tian in Yang Chen's hands, he could not hide his smile. A magic treasure with the aura of the immortal world. It seems that this is the inheritance you obtained from the beheading Immortal platform. Good stuff. Long Can and Long K had some communication with this guy. Long Can and Long K could get news about him from the Zhao clan in Yanglan. Ao-san was not surprised to know that Yang Chun obtained the inheritance of the beheading Immortal platform. After praising the beheading Immortal saber, Ao-san did not forget to wave his claws at Xiao Tian. Little guy, if you are willing to be my demon pet, I can spare your life. TSK. What a powerful group of women. Ao-san turned to look at Yang Chen's wives and concubines. His eyes lit up. Good magic treasure. Good aptitude. If I use you to refine a set of new heavenly demons, even a perfected golden immortal expert would be trapped. At this moment, Yang Chen finally understood that Ao-san was a madman. Probably, in his eyes, he only cared about refining magic treasures. Everything he saw was a raw material for refining. Not to mention people of the same race. Even blood relatives would not be an exception in his eyes. Ao-san really did not understand why this guy was still so stubborn after being imprisoned for so many tens of thousands of years. What was the purpose of the dragon race expert who imprisoned him? Even Long Can and Long K, who had helped him before, were just two decent artifact spirits in Ao-san's eyes. One could imagine to what extent this guy had gone berserk. Such a guy would only bring harm to the world. If Yang Chun did not stop him today, he would probably turn around and refine the spiritual world again. Such a guy could not be left alive. Not to mention his crazy character, just the words he said to the women just now were enough to make him lose all reason to live. If Yang Chun still had to take care of Ao-lan's face before now, Ao-lan probably could not wait to kill this crazy ancestor. I heard that you also refined a set of magic treasure for the dragon race, just like Ao Guang. Yang Chun said to Ao Sr., I would like to give you a judgment. Let's see if your refinement is better or if Ao Guang's is better. Chapter 2459. Just based on the trash he refined in the mortal realm that he did not even dare to bring up from the spiritual realm, how can it be compared to the magic treasures that I refined in the spiritual realm for tens of thousands of years? When Ao-san heard Yang Chen's words, he immediately turned on his mocking mode. He did not hide the mocking sneer on his face. Only you fellows who have not seen the world would treat straw as gold. So what if it was refined in the mortal realm? Yang Chan seemed to suddenly stand on Ao Guang's side. He retorted, which powerhouse of the spiritual realm did not ascend from the mortal realm? It seems like only the natives who could not cultivate were born in the spiritual realm. Yang Chun used a cultivator to counter Ao-san's magic treasures. Although it was not the same thing, the logic was the same. To put it bluntly, the difference was the heavenly tribulation. Regardless of whether it was in the process of cultivation or refining magic treasures, the power of the heavenly tribulation could not be ignored. Magic treasures that had not experienced the heavenly tribulation and magic treasures that had experienced the heavenly tribulation could not be mentioned in the same breath. The magic treasures that Ao-san refined in the spiritual realm seemed to be made of very high-quality materials, and his cultivation was much higher than when he refined them in the mortal realm. However, no matter what, he had not experienced the heavenly tribulation in the mortal realm. He was naturally lacking something that could not be explained clearly. It was best to describe it as a congenital deficiency. Don't look at how the mortal realm only had the lightning tribulation, flame tribulation, and fierce wind tribulation. It sounded unremarkable, but with everyone's current cultivation, the three calamities were the most basic components of the heavenly tribulation. No matter how strong the heavenly tribulation in the spiritual realm or the immortal realm was, it was just an upgraded version of the three calamities of the mortal realm. From this aspect, the dragon race magic treasures that Yang Chun had brought from the mortal realm might not be inferior to the magic treasures that Ao-san had refined for tens of thousands of years. After saying so much, aren't we just going to see our true abilities? Ao-san would not compete with Yang Chun for these advantages. At this time, the more time Yang Chun had to prepare, the less disadvantages Yang Chun, who could not see the depth, would have. It was not easy to find a time when Yang Chen's morale was at its lowest. How could Ao Sun waste time? Although Yang Chen had been tricked by Ao Sun and had helped him escape the imprisonment array, Ao Sun's actions had infuriated him. Xiao Tian's hand has once again grasped the body of Xiao Tian, and Xiao Tian understood and tightened the wrist of Yang Chen. You? Why are you only at the peak of Golden Immortal? When Ao Sun completely released his aura, allowing everyone to sense it, the Long clan's first elder was immediately shocked. He pointed at Ao Sun and exclaimed. In everyone's estimation, since Ao Sun had casually given pointers to Long Can and Long K, coupled with the time he had been imprisoned, he should have reached the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal stage. No one expected that Ao Sun was only at the peak of the Golden Immortal stage. The people of the Dragon Tribe were puzzled because of this. According to the time, Ao Sun should have reached the late stage of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. How could he still be at the peak of Golden Immortal? So what if you were at the peak of Golden Immortal? Ao Sun glanced at the Long clan's first elder with disdain. In his eyes, these people were only refining materials. They would never understand the mystery. No wonder they could only be refining materials. If you still look at Cultivation Realm, then you will only be like this for the rest of your life. Isn't that right, Yang Chen? Yang Chen certainly understood the truth. A towering building starts from flat ground. When laying the foundation, no matter how strong the foundation was, it would not be too much. This was also the reason why Yang Chen had stayed in the Qi refining stage for a full 10 years, even though he could have reached the foundation building stage in a very short time. He relied on the reverse yin and yang 5 elements secret art to temper his spiritual power and build an abnormally strong foundation. Others might not understand, but Yang Chen himself was a living example. In Yang Chen's life, he had killed cultivators with higher cultivation realms than him more than once or twice. The most recent time was when he scared Long Can and Long K to the point that they did not dare to move. This was sufficient to show the importance of a strong foundation. Yang Chen could completely imagine how terrifying it was for Ao Sun to spend hundreds of thousands of years to maintain this cultivation realm and continuously strengthen his foundation. This was definitely a formidable opponent, one that was comparable to Big Brother Li Cheng. When Ao Sun told Yang Chen that he wanted to see who was the real deal, an exquisite pagoda appeared on the huge dragon claw. It was just that it was far away, giving people a feeling of delicacy. The aura on it attracted the attention of all the experts of the Dragon Tribe. Every expert of the Dragon Tribe had an indescribable covetous desire in their eyes. Even Yang Chen could not help but be attracted when he saw it. There was no need to ask, this pagoda was definitely the dragon pagoda that Ao Sun refined. It looked much more exquisite than the one that Ao Guang refined. However, Yang Chen did not look down on Ao Guang's dragon pagoda just because it was exquisite. It had two different styles, one rough and the other exquisite. There was no way to say which was better. It seemed to depend on the preferences of the refiner. Thinking about it, this dragon pagoda must be the key to control the other treasures that Ao Sun refined. Even Yang Chen felt the desire to take it for himself when he saw it, let alone the people of the Dragon Tribe. As for Xiao Tian, he was already drooling, his saliva flowing down the edge of the Immortal Beheading Saber. Yang Chen raised the Immortal Beheading Saber high up, instantly turning it into a huge saber that was tens of meters long. He leaped up high and chopped down at Ao Senior Ding. There was a crisp sound of weapons clashing. The Immortal Beheading Saber, as well as Yang Chen, were blocked in the air. It was Ao Sun brandishing the Dragon Pagoda, blocking Yang Chen's ferocious saber strike. It was unknown what material was used to refine the Dragon Pagoda, but it did not fear the sharpness of the Immortal Beheading Saber, which was made from the Diamond Chakram. At the very least, Yang Chen did not see any saber marks on the Dragon Pagoda. Not only that, even the power of Xiao Tian's space-severing saber was drawn into an empty space within the Dragon Pagoda, disappearing without a trace. This time, Yang Chen's earth-shattering attack was easily blocked by Ao Senator aside from a crisp ding. There was no movement at all. However, Yang Chun had a lot of battle experience and was not moved at all. His empty left hand seized the opportunity and directly grabbed the huge dragon claw that Ao-san was smashing towards him. Bang! The instant the two fists and claws collided, another muffled sound erupted. Then, a small figure rapidly retreated. At the same time as the figure retreated, there was the sound of flesh being torn apart. Then, a large amount of blood spurted out. When everyone looked again, they only saw Yang Chun being sent flying by Ao-sen's attack. Just as the girls were about to cry out in alarm, they suddenly stopped. A huge wound had appeared on Ao-sen's body. One of his huge claw and arm had already disappeared without a trace. Chapter 2460. Yang Chen's beheading Immortal saber was formidable. This was common knowledge, and almost all his friends and enemies knew about it. Because the name beheading Immortal saber was inseparable from the beheading Immortal platform, especially when Yang Chun himself admitted that he came from the beheading Immortal platform and even obtained the inheritance of the beheading Immortal platform in the Valley of No Return. Therefore, as long as Yang Chun fought against Yang Chun, there was no one who did not guard against Yang Chen's beheading Immortal saber. Ao-san was no exception. He had contact with Long Can and Long K, and Long Can and Long K could get news about Yang Chun from the Zhao clan and Yanglan, so Ao-san naturally knew the details of Yang Chun. In particular, in the past 60 years, Yang Chun used the beheading Immortal saber to attack Ao-san's Mountain River geographical map almost all the time. Regarding the attack power of the beheading Immortal saber, Ao-san was well aware of it. It could be said that Ao-san understood the power of the beheading Immortal saber more than any other cultivator. Because whether it was the mortal world or the spiritual world, there were almost no cultivators who could make Yang Chun use the full power of the beheading Immortal saber, especially with the addition of Xiao Tian. It could be said that Yang Chun could only attack with full power when facing Ao-san's Mountain River geographical map without any scruples. This also meant that Ao-san had observed Yang Chen's beheading Immortal saber for decades. There was almost no one who understood the beheading Immortal saber better than Ao-san. So he knew that Yang Chen's beheading Immortal saber could cut off the array that imprisoned him. So he made various arrangements to bring Yang Chun to the side of the array that imprisoned him, and then used Yang Chun to gain freedom. Ao-san understood Yang Chen's beheading Immortal saber so well. How could he not have a way to deal with the beheading Immortal saber? As a matter of fact, the Dragon Pagoda successfully blocked the blow of the beheading Immortal saber. Don't look at the Dragon Pagoda in Ao-sen's hand. It looked small and exquisite from afar, but looking at it up close, it was a normal huge pagoda that was several tens of feet high and several tens of feet wide. It was unknown how Ao-san refined it, but there seemed to be another small space inside the pagoda that could withstand the power of the beheading Immortal saber cutting off the space. From this point, it could be seen that Ao-sen's Dragon Pagoda was truly impressive. However, whether it was better than Ao Guang's, Yang Chun couldn't say, because he had never attacked the Dragon Tower in the hands of Xiao Tian. With Xiao Tian's stingy temperament, he would never allow Yang Chun to attack the Dragon Tower. After blocking Yang Chen's Immortal beheading saber, Ao-san thought that he had already blocked Yang Chen's strongest attack. However, he had underestimated the strength of Yang Chen's physical body. Even though Ao-san knew from Long Can and Long K that Yang Chen's physical body was very strong, and even though he himself could see that Yang Chen's body refining technique was very strong, he still thought that Yang Chun was only slightly stronger than ordinary cultivators. His main combat strength was still due to his magic treasures and Xiao Tian. In order to block Yang Chen's Immortal beheading saber, Ao-san had secretly activated the dragon race's unmovable mountain technique from start. He had firmly fixed his body in place so that he could receive Yang Chen's shocking attack. Ao-san had succeeded. He had successfully blocked Yang Chen's Immortal beheading saber attack. Then, he immediately started to plan a counterattack. At this moment, Yang Chen also started to attack with his bare hands. In terms of physical body strength, was there a human that could compare to the dragon race? In this world, from a mortal world to the immortal world, if the dragon race dared to say that their physical strength and strength were second in the world, then which race would dare to say that they were first? The dragon race was proud. They could even treat their own race as raw materials for refining tools. Ao's son, who did not place them in his eyes, was even more so. His proud nature had never placed Yang Qin's bare hands in his eyes. Yang Qin's hand came into contact with Ao Sin's huge claws, and he grabbed them. The dragon claws that were harder than steel were easily grabbed by Yang Qin, as if he was grabbing tofu. Yang Qin managed to dig out a few holes in the dragon claws and grab them firmly. The huge dragon claws directly landed on Yang Qin's body. Yang Qin's body lit up, and the image of a golden bell instantly appeared. 8 dragon silhouettes flew around, instantly withstanding the power of this attack. Even though Yang Qin had not completely withstood the attack, the rest was borne by Yang Qin's body. To Yang Qin, this attack did not have much destructive power. However, Yang Qin's casual grab and retreat brought Ao's son a great deal of damage. One of the dragon claws was firmly grabbed by Yang Qin, and Yang Qin executed the immovable mountain technique, fixing himself in place. Under the tremendous power generated by Kwa Yi's body refining technique, which had already reached the second level of Kwa Yi's secret technique, the dragon claws, as well as the arm attached to them, were forcibly torn off from Ao Sin's body by Yang Qin. Yang Qin was not knocked far away. Soon, he stopped and hovered in the air. However, his human body was holding a complete dragon arm with a dragon claws, which was several tens of meters long. It looked very uncoordinated. Little Shui, take it and deal with it. It's a pretty good material for refining tools. In the next moment, Yang Qin passed the dragon arm to Sun Qingxue and said the same thing. Unfortunately, it's not complete. Otherwise, the effect would be better. It could be said that Yang Qin's words were completely in response to Ao Sin's earlier words about treating humans as materials for refining tools. However, Yang Qin's words were even more impolite, especially when he said that it was not complete. This fellow who did not have enough self-cultivation would probably be angered to death by Yang Qin. Sun Qingxue beamed and quickly threw the huge dragon claw into her cosmos sack. She did not care about anything else. She just needed to put it in her cosmos sack. After all, this was the complete dragon claw of a peak golden immortal of the dragon race that had cultivated bitterly for hundreds of thousands of years. Furthermore, it was of the wood attribute. How could it be described as just a pretty good material for refining tools? Wu Shuang, wait for a while. I will also get you a good material in a while. After giving the dragon claw to Sun Qingxue, it seemed like Yang Qin did not feel that it was stimulating enough. He said this to Shi Wu Shuang, who was also of the wood attribute, causing Shi Wu Shuang to laugh heartily. The surging dragon blood immediately stopped. Ao Sin did not even show any pain on his face. He still had a mocking expression on his face. It seems like I underestimated you. Very good. As he said that, the flesh on the huge wound that Yang Qin tore off started to churn. It wriggled non-stop like it had a life of its own. Right in front of everyone's eyes, a brand new dragon claw that was no different from the original grew out in an instant. Your strength is very surprising. However, it seems like the golden bell that Ao Guang refined using the golden dragon Qilin is not as sturdy as you think. A pleased smile flashed in Ao Sen's eyes. It seemed like he did not react to his arm being torn off and only wanted to see Yang Qin fail. Indeed, Yang Qin did not hide anything. He directly took out the golden bell that had already merged with his body. There was a huge claw mark on it. However, with the help of the spiritual energy from the Qingqun treasure nurturing art and the golden body art, it was slowly recovering. Soon, it returned to its original appearance. The billions of demonic beasts in the Mountain River geographical map are connected to me. Ao Sin did not mind letting Yang Qin know his trump card. On the other hand, I want to know how many attacks you can take from me. Chapter 2461. In the first exchange between the two sides, it looked like Yang Qin had the upper hand. After all, Yang Qin had injured Ao Sin's fleshly body. Not only that, he had also crippled Ao Sin's limbs. In comparison, The damage that Ao's son had done to Yang Chun was not worth mentioning. It was just that the magic treasure that had fused with his body was slightly damaged, and it could be immediately recovered with the help of spiritual energy. On the surface, it looked like this, but if one had a deeper understanding of the situation, one would realize that no one had gained the upper hand. Ao Sin's injuries looked terrifying, but if one thought about the trillions of demonic beasts behind him providing him with life force, this injury was not worth mentioning. Yang Chun's magic treasure did not look like much, but Yang Chun did not have much support behind him. To Yang Chun, it was still considered an injury. Therefore, strictly speaking, both sides should be evenly matched, and they were evenly matched. No one had gained the upper hand, and both sides had suffered small loss. Speaking of which, Ao Sin's ability to share his life with trillions of demonic beasts was not strange. Among Yang Chun's wives and concubines, Shi Wushuang could do this. She could share her life with 24 Peng Lai divine with demons. Coincidentally, Shi Wushuang also had with spiritual roots. This made people wonder if all would attribute cultivators had this kind of transcendence. At first glance, Ao Sin's actions seemed a bit unfair. However, neither Yang Chun nor the cultivators on Yang Chun's side felt this way. The Mountain River geographical map was a magic treasure that Ao Sun had refined himself. This would not change, so the things inside the Mountain River geographical map were the same. Ao Sun using his Mountain River geographical map was the same as Gong Sunling using her Mountain River geographical map. Using one's own magic treasure to attack the opponent was understandable. Since Yang Chun could accept Gong Sunling using the Mountain River geographical map to oppress the opponent, then he could accept the opponent in front of him using the Mountain River geographical map to deal with him. Even if Ao Sin's Mountain River geographical map was only left with 10% of the demon realm, it was still a terrifying independent world. The number of demonic beasts inside was enough to make people go crazy. If Ao Sun shared his life with the Peng Lai divine with demons like Shi Wushuang, then Yang Chun could almost directly admit defeat. With so many demonic beasts providing life, Ao Sun could be said to be an undying existence. Adding the Mountain River geographical map's endless supply of spiritual roots, as well as Ao Sin's powerful cultivation and fighting strength, he could easily exhaust Yang Chun to death. This was also based on Ao Sin's willingness to confront Yang Chun head-on. If Ao Sun used Gong Sunling's method, he could directly let the demonic beasts in the Mountain River geographical map share Yang Chun's attack equally, and then gather the strength of those demonic beasts to counterattack Yang Chun. Even if Yang Chun was 100 times stronger, he would still die with hatred on the spot. Fortunately, Ao Sin's Mountain River geographical map did not have a cultivator with active consciousness. Originally, the entire Zhao clan was inside, but they were all buried by Yang Chun. At that time, Ao Sun did not interfere. He just observed everything from the standpoint of a bystander. Of course, the consequence of watching from the sidelines was that Ao Sun could not control the cultivators in the Mountain River geographical map like Gong Sunling. At least he could not maintain the same attack and defense posture as him. Without consciousness, no matter what action it was impossible for that number of demonic beasts to work together. Naturally, in this respect, he could not be compared with Gong Sunling. However, this guy developed another way, borrowing the vitality of those demonic beasts. Yang Chun firmly believed that Shi Wushuang sharing the life of the Peng Lai Divine Wood monster was absolutely unique. It was a fortuitous encounter in the heavenly tribulation. Yang Chun did not believe that Ao Sun would cross the heavenly tribulation together with the demonic beasts of the demon realm. Since it was not like Shi Wushuang, then Ao Sun could borrow the vitality of the demonic beast through the Mountain River geographical map. In this case, Yang Chun would not be too afraid. What Ao Sun could do was only this. If there was no other way, who would be willing to bear the pain of physical disability? Of course, this was related to Ao Sin's own underestimation of Yang Chun's strength, but it was not necessarily unrelated to Ao Sin's inability to do it. These were all speculations, but for Yang Chun, it was very simple to find out. He just needed to attack again. Although he had thought so much earlier, in reality, it was only 1 or 2 breaths of time. Yang Chen's beheading immortal saber was already raised again, chopping at Ao Senator. No matter how strong the Dragon Pagoda was, Yang Chen firmly believed that it might not be comparable to the material of the Diamond Chakram. Yang Chen had asked Ao Lan and Long Quang a long time ago, where did the material of the Diamond Chakram that Long Quang found in the Fire Dragon Palace come from? Was it something that everyone in the dragon race had? In the end, he obtained an answer that made him speechless. It was something that Long Quang had found by chance. Because it was very hard, his dragon flame was unable to melt it, so he placed it there. As long as Ao Sun did not have the same material, Yang Chen firmly believed that the Dragon Pagoda would not be able to withstand the continuous attacks of the immortal beheading saber. Being able to withstand 1 or 2 attacks was not much, but if it could withstand 1,000 or 10,000 attacks, then that would be the case. It looked like although Ao Sun had refined many magic treasures, the only one that could withstand the attacks of the immortal beheading saber was the Dragon Pagoda. The Mountain River geographical map seemed to be able to do it as well, but that came at the cost of losing 5,000 kilometers of space each time. With only 1/10 of the demonic realm left, Ao Sun could no longer bear to use the Mountain River geographical map to receive Yang Chen's attacks. The Dragon Pagoda and the immortal beheading saber clashed again. It looked like they were evenly matched. This time, Ao Sun was smart and did not fight with Yang Chen. In front of this freak that Ao Lai spoke of, the powerful physical body that he was so proud of could not gain any advantage. The one who was the most excited about this clash was not Yang Chen or Ao Sun, but Xiao Tian. Xiao Tian, who had the immortal beheading saber in its mouth, could increase its understanding of Ao Sin's Dragon Pagoda through the clash of the immortal beheading saber and the Dragon Pagoda. The Dragon Pagoda that Ao Guang left behind was purely used as a medium to record the dragon race's inheritance and a warehouse to store some important items. It had never been used as an offensive magic treasure. The Dragon Pagoda contained many dragon races' cultivation inheritances. However, it did not contain everything. At the very least, the use of the Dragon Pagoda was never recorded. Xiao Tian could learn a lot from it. In addition to the confrontation between the Dragon Pagoda and the immortal beheading saber, Ao Sun consciously avoided Yang Chen's melee. For the time being, Yang Chen was at a disadvantage, because compared to Ao Sun, the magic treasures on Yang Chen's body were too few. In addition to the Golden Bell, Yang Chen did not keep any dragon race's magic treasures. However, Ao Sun had a complete set of magic treasures to use. However, no matter how powerful the magic treasures were, in front of Yang Chen, this guy who did not conform to common sense, it seemed to be a bit like casting pearls before swine. A terrifying to the extreme strength. Before any magic treasure attacked Yang Chen, it must first consider not to be caught by Yang Chen. Otherwise, it would just be waiting to be scrapped. Chapter 2462. Because the mysterious Sky Dark Sea Shuttle was integrated with the 5 Elements Dragon Palace, it had been placed in the Mountain River geographical map and had not been taken out. The only magic weapons on Yang Chen's body were the immortal beheading blade and the Golden Bell. In contrast, Ao Sun had a lot more choices. What made people even more worried was that when Ao Sun found that the Dragon Pagoda and the immortal beheading blade could only fight evenly, and the other magic weapons did not dare to attack Yang Chen easily, this guy immediately made a new decision. The reason why he did not dare to attack Yang Chen was because he was afraid of the magic weapons being damaged. But as long as he was not afraid of these, Ao Sun had a lot of means to attack. A seemingly crystal clear glass bottle appeared out of thin air in everyone's field of vision, then enlarged into a small mountain, flew at high speed to the head of Yang Chen and smashed down. It was not so much a smash, it was more like the pressure of Mount Tai. The huge glass bottle was many times bigger than Yang Chen. With a loud bang, it directly pressed Yang Chen and Xiao Tian under it. The huge weight directly made the glass bottle sink hundreds of feet into the ground of the demon realm. One could imagine how terrifying the weight of the glass bottle was. However, Whether it was Yang Chen's family or the friends of the dragon race, they were indifferent to this scene. It seemed that they were very confident in the strength of Yang Chen. Wanting to rely on the weight to defeat Yang Chen's strength was simply wishful thinking, unless Ao's son put the entire demon realm on the line. But if he did that, Ao's son was afraid that he would not be able to control the demon realm. Sure enough, the next moment, the huge glass bottle flew high again, and then a figure rushed out from below, grabbed the glass bottle in midair, and held it in his hand. Ao's son realized that he had made a mistake and immediately wanted to take back the magic weapon. But since it had been caught by Yang Chen, there was no chance to take it back. No matter how much spiritual power he used to control the glass bottle, it was still held in Yang Chen's hand, and it could no longer move. The 5 hooks circled around and grabbed at Yang Chen from 5 different directions. At this time, Yang Chen's situation was very delicate. The immortal slaying saber was restrained by the dragon pagoda and could not exert its power for the time being. His empty hand was holding the glass bottle and could not free his hand. It seemed that Yang Chen could only watch helplessly as the 5 elements hook grabbed him. It looked like Ao-san was about to succeed. However, in that instant, the situation changed again. Yang Chen grabbed the huge glass bottle and waved it around, blocking all of Ao-san's 5 element chains. The glass bottle was so big that it could easily cover Yang Chen's entire body. Boom! There was another loud sound. Although Yang Chen blocked the attack of the 5 element chains, Ao-san took advantage of this opportunity to use the high speed of the mysterious Heaven Dark Sea Shuttle to pierce through Yang Chen's gap. A dragon horn ruthlessly stabbed into Yang Chen's body, producing a loud sound. The surface of Yang Chen's body flashed with a golden light, and the golden bell appeared again, blocking the fierce attack of the dragon horn. However, as expected, a clear groove appeared on the golden bell. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, Yang Chen's right hand let go of Xiao Tian's body, which was equivalent to letting go of the handle of the immortal slaying saber. His free hand grabbed the dragon horn that was about to retreat. Crack! The crisp sound of a dragon horn snapping reached everyone's ears. Ao's son quickly retreated. When his figure reappeared, he was missing a dragon horn, and blood was flowing from the broken part. Wushuang catch! With Yang Chen's shout, Ao-san's broken dragon horn flew from Yang Chen's hand to Shi Wushuang. Shi Wushuang smiled and quickly put the dragon horn into her chinquan bag. She did not forget to thank her husband from afar. "Thank you, husband." Shi Wushuang could not help but be happy. This was a fresh dragon horn from a peak wood attribute golden immortal expert. Was there any better material to strengthen her life flying sword than this? Her husband had just given Sun Qingxue a dragon claw and said that he would compensate her. Now, the compensation came immediately. Ao-san twisted his neck, and the dragon horn on his head began to grow rapidly. It seemed that the injury just now had no effect on Ao-senator. The golden bell on Yang Chen's body also slowly recovered, and after a while, it returned to normal. Yang Chen's right hand had already grabbed Xiao Tian's body. Just now, Xiao Tian was still controlling the beheading immortal saber. Its tail was still wrapped around Yang Chen's wrist. It could be said that the power of the attack had not weakened. Seeing this scene, Ao-san understood that Xiao Tian was really too abnormal. As long as he helped, it did not matter if Yang Chen did not need to hold the saber handle. Everyone saw that Yang Chen had been grabbing Xiao Tian, but it was just a habit. If they wanted to rely on this to plot against Yang Chen, they had made a mistake. Originally, Ao-san's plan was very good. The glass bottle would restrain Yang Chen's left hand, and the dragon pagoda would restrain Yang Chen's right hand. He could take the opportunity to attack. Unfortunately, the plan was good, but the reality was too cruel. I actually do not like to use this kind of protective magic weapon. Ao-san opened his mouth again. I thought that I could block your power by relying on my own body, but it seems that I was wrong. At the same time, a golden bell phantom appeared on his body. The dragon shadows hovering above it were twice as many as on Yang Chen's side. People couldn't help but be surprised. How many of his own race did Ao-san kill to have so many dragon spirits. Before, I always disapproved of one's strength, but after seeing you, I believe it. At this time, Ao Sin's words were full of admiration, not the previous tone of contempt. The sarcastic expression on his face disappeared without a trace, and was replaced with a very solemn and serious face. I am very curious. How long can this power of yours last? You could try. Yang Chun smiled and replied. In addition, you should be careful. I have been using the spiritual power of the fire attribute before. Boom! As he spoke, the dragon pagoda and the immortal beheading saber collided intensely again. The power of this collision was unprecedented, so much so that one of the eaves on one of the floors of Ao Sin's dragon tower was directly cut in half by Yang Chen's beheading immortal blade, which was wrapped in the great yin and yang 5 elements. The dragon pagoda, which had previously been able to fight evenly with Yang Chen's immortal beheading saber, finally suffered damage for the first time. The spiritual power that erupted from the great yin-yang 5 elemental arts and the Big Dipper Earth Terminus formation was not something that a fire attribute spiritual power could compare to. Its might was increased by tens of times. Ao Sin's body was pushed back for a long time before he stabilized himself in the air. However, Ao Sin's next action caused all the cultivators who saw it to feel fear from the depths of their hearts. Seeing that the dragon pagoda was damaged, Ao Sin did not say anything and used his dragon claws to dig at his own body. In the blink of an eye, a large lump of flesh with bones was grabbed by Ao Sin and stuffed into the dragon pagoda. Soon, the parts of the dragon pagoda that were damaged by Yang Chun were as good as new, and the huge wound that Ao Sin had dug out had mostly recovered. Chapter 2463. Ao Sin actually used his own flesh and bones to refine the dragon pagoda. If they did not see this scene with their own eyes, no one would believe such a cruel fact. No wonder Ao Sin's dragon pagoda was his life-bonded magic treasure. So it was refined from his own flesh and bones. In this world, was there a magic treasure that was more obedient than his own body? The majority of the fiend race also used a part of their own body to refine their life-bonded magic treasure. However, there had never been a case where a life-bonded magic treasure was damaged, and they immediately dug out a large chunk of their own flesh to repair it. At most, if the life-bonded magic treasure was damaged, everyone would hide it and slowly refine it to repair it. No matter what, it would take a very long time. However, Ao Sin's method toppled the common sense of all cultivators. This fellow was not only ruthless to his enemies, he was ruthless to his own clansmen, and he was even more ruthless to himself. He did not only treat his enemies like Yang Chun as refinement materials, he also treated his own clansmen as refinement materials. Even his own body was his refinement material. From this point, it could be seen that Ao Sin was a complete lunatic. Yang Chun even suspected that the reason why this fellow's cultivation remained at the peak of the golden immortal realm was because when he was imprisoned, he would dig out his own flesh and bones to refine magic treasures. Ao Lon, Long Quang, and the rest of the dragon race experts were clearly frightened by this scene. They had seen crazy people before, but they had never seen someone this crazy. They originally thought that Long Can and Long K were already mentally abnormal because they were born with crippled limbs. However, in front of Ao Sin, it was like the difference between a baby and a giant. Good. What made everyone even crazier was that Ao Sin actually cheered at this moment. Fortunately, you still had a few moves left. If you could not do anything now, then wouldn't it be very boring for us? Of course, Yang Chun would not easily expose his trump cards. Even when he was helping Gong Sunling refine Ao Sin's Mountain River geographical map, Yang Chun still held back. An all-out attack was an all-out attack, but only the spiritual power of the fire attribute, third fire and fourth fire. This was in line with Yang Chen's innate attributes, at least in the eyes of others. If they did not know that Yang Chun was a direct descendant, they would also regard Yang Chun as a fire attribute cultivator. This was because Yang Chen's entire body was displaying a fiery nature, and it was a very domineering fiery nature, which could not be faked. Ordinary cultivators would never be able to imagine that a cultivator with a full attribute spiritual root would be able to imbue all of his spiritual power with a fire attribute. Even in front of Black Heaven Sect Master Wang and Sect Master Li, Yang Chun had always behaved like this and had never been suspected. Ao Sun could only sense Yang Chen's attributes through the mountain river geographical map. Naturally, he did not know too much. However, when Yang Chun used his full attribute spiritual power to attack, the power of the great Yin-Yang 5 elemental art had increased by several times due to the 5 elements complementing each other. With the addition of the Heavenly Dipper Treasure refining art and the Earth Fiend sacrificial formation, the power of the attack had increased by several dozen times. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they would have already been seriously injured or even killed due to being caught off guard. However, this fellow Ao Sun was indeed abnormal. He only lost a corner of the Dragon Pagoda. Because there were hundreds of trillions of crazy demonic beasts sharing his life, Ao Sun did not even care about the damage to his body and casually used his body to repair the magic treasure. Such a terrifying scene. How could people not feel their blood run cold? Looks like you're also bringing out your true ability. Then let's go all out and have a good fight. Ao Sun was now clearly excited, the excitement on his face. The surrounding people were all shocked. This fellow could not be a masochist, right? The more miserable he was being tossed around, the more excited he became. Ao Sun did not care about everyone's gazes and threw the Dragon Pagoda. Just as everyone was wondering why he threw the Dragon Pagoda, Ao Sun slammed his head into the Dragon Pagoda. Under everyone's gaze, a hexagonal pedestal appeared on Ao Sun's head. It looked exactly the same as the pedestal of the Dragon Palace's control hub. Then the Dragon Pagoda seemed to be attracted by something and steadily flew to the pedestal. There was a soft kata sound as the Dragon Pagoda settled down on the pedestal. The Dragon Pagoda on his head looked like it had a third horn. Ao Sun opened his mouth and let out a long roar. His body flickered with a golden light, and the dragon image on the golden bell flew around, almost completely covering Ao Sun's body. Following that, the 5 elemental hooks flew up at the same time and wrapped around Ao Sun's 4 claws. The last hook wrapped around Ao Sun's tail. It could be said that Ao Sun's entire body was now a weapon. The reason why it was almost was because whether it was his back or his abdomen, he did not have any particularly sharp attacks. But soon everyone knew what Ao Sun used to make up for it. Dragon horns on Ao Sun's back. There were at least 10 dragon horns of various attributes, as if they were grown on Ao Sun's back. Seeing Ao Sun's equipment, Yang Chen already understood how the water and fire twin dragon horns distributed to Gaoyu were used on the Dragon Clan. This was not the end. Ao Sun seemed to be demonstrating to Yang Chen the true use of the Dragon Clan's magic weapon. The mysterious Sky Dark Sea shuttle merged into Ao Sun's body under everyone's gaze. Then everyone saw a lightning-fast shadow of Ao Sun flying around Yang Chen's body at high speed. Even with good eyes, they could only see a shadow. Fortunately, everyone could still use their spiritual awareness to detect Ao Sun's location at all times. Just when everyone was rejoicing in their hearts, a jade-like magic weapon appeared and wrapped around Ao Senator, the sea-pouring jasper cup. In addition to being able to condense the 10th water spiritual liquid in the sea, it also had a very powerful effect, which was to shield the exploration of spiritual awareness. Ao Sun's body appeared opposite to Yang Chun. Everyone could see it, but no one could detect it with their spiritual awareness, as if standing there was just a shadow that did not exist. But everyone knew very well that Ao Sun was there. When he moved at high speed during the battle, perhaps no one could catch him. The Dragon Pagoda, the Golden Bell, the mysterious Sky Dark Sea Shuttle, the 5 elements rope hook, the dragon horns, and the sea-pouring jasper cup had all appeared, leaving only the Mountain River geographical map and the Dragon Clan Gourd. The Mountain River geographical map had refined 1/10 of the demon realm, providing Ao Sun with a steady stream of monster beast vitality. It was already working, but what about the Dragon Clan Gourd? Aren't you tired of holding it in your hands? Ao Sun seemed to be dispelling Yang Chen's doubts, and asked with a smile. Although it is just a tool that we usually refine to hold wine, if there are several oceans in it, how fast can you maintain in your hands? Chapter 2464. Under his grip, the glass bottle was definitely damaged, but Yang Chun could clearly feel that the bottle was recovering on its own. Needless to say, it must be the method Ao-san used to repair the Dragon Pagoda to repair the glass bottle. Sharp-tongued, Ao-san did not seem to care about the injuries on his body, and directly asked with a smile, "Could it be that you still have some hidden cards?" Hearing Ao-san's words, Yang Chen's first reaction was to throw away the glass bottle in his hand. However, at this time, it was already a bit too late. The glass bottle seemed to have a strong suction force that firmly stuck the bottle in Yang Chen's hand, making it impossible for him to get rid of it for a while. Good technique, good strength. While praising Yang Chen, the big wound on Ao-sen's tail had already slowly closed. The glass bottle in Yang Chen's hand turned out to be the magic weapon corresponding to the dragon gourd. Only its appearance had changed, but its function had not changed, and it could still hold a large amount of liquid. Ao-sen's target from the beginning of this attack was Xiao Tian. He wanted to remove the factors that could bring Yang Chen victory one by one, and let Yang Chen also taste the taste of failure. The familiar dragon aura coming from the beads made Yang Chen instantly understand that these beads were all shrunken dragon beads. It must be known that Yang Chen obtained a dragon bead from the treasure house left by Ao Guang, and later gave it to Xiao Tian. A funny scene appeared. Everyone could not see Ao-sen's body, and their spiritual sense could not detect Ao-sen's existence. But Yang Chen was holding a small piece of grappling hook in his hand, and under the crazy swing, a burst of rumbling sounds rang out in the surrounding open space, and a huge pit appeared out of nowhere in the ground. Mixed with Ao-sen's uncontrollable scream of panic, it really made people want to laugh. But just as Ao-sen's voice fell, Yang Chen's right hand, which was originally grabbing Xiao Tian's beheading immortal saber, had already reached down and grabbed the hook on his leg. With a strong lift, he began to indiscriminately swing it left and right. At Yang Chen's side, the beheading immortal saber slowly flew up by itself. Then, it slowly separated from Yang Chen's side and flew in another direction. It floated high in the air, its blade shining, waiting for the next attack. A series of swings ended with Ao-san breaking his wrist. When Yang Chen tossed a small portion of the dragon tail to the Murong sisters, Ao-san reappeared. Yang Chen looked like a miniature Herculean ape king, incomparably ferocious. Xiao Tian's injury aroused Yang Chen's ferocious nature. He seized the opportunity to give Ao-san a heavy blow. Yang Chen didn't say anything and took back Xiao Tian. He sent 2 8th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills into Xiao Tian's mouth and sent him back to the Dragon Tower. Good material, good workmanship. Yang Chen also did not want to be outdone. He was talking about the part of Ao-sen's body that was given to the Murong sisters. Boom! The Dragon Tower appeared directly and blocked the beheading immortal saber. Without waiting for Yang Chen to observe what kind of damage the beheading immortal saber had caused, he suddenly felt a sense of alarm. His head jerked back, and a sharp hook brushed past Yang Chen's nose. It was only a hair away from opening a horizontal cut on Yang Chen's face. Just avoiding his head, Yang Chen's stomach hurt. A series of attacks fell on Yang Chen's soft stomach. The golden bell flashed in time and was scratched by a series of dragon claws, leaving more than a dozen deep marks. Yang Chen just wanted to understand this, and Ao-sen's attack had already begun. The figure just flashed, and Ao-sen's whole body disappeared. No matter how Yang Chen used his spiritual awareness, he could not find Ao-sen's position. Even if Yang Chen used the spiritual awareness threads cultivated by the 3 Purities secret art, it was the same. Fortunately, Yang Chen, as an executioner, was extremely sensitive to the murderous intent. When he noticed that there was a murderous intent in his chest, the beheading immortal saber slashed out without thinking. Let's see how you can hurt me without this little guy's attack bonus. Ao-sen's figure did not appear, but his voice sounded in everyone's ears, and he was very proud. More than a dozen egg-sized beads, like cannonballs, smashed into Xiao Tian's body that was wrapped around his wrist. More than a dozen beads were arranged in a line. Xiao Tian had almost no space to escape, and all of them were solidly hit. With both hands together, Yang Chun was sure that he could pull the bottle open, but it was clear that Ao Sun would not give him this opportunity. As long as he moved, Ao Sun's attack would definitely come. Even if Yang Chun could easily take this weight and not be crushed, Yang Chun's speed was greatly restrained. Not to mention that Yang Chun did not have a mysterious Sky Dark Sea shuttle in his hands. Even if he used the shuttle, it was impossible to match the speed of Ao Sun, who was also equipped with the mysterious Sky Dark Sea shuttle. Originally, he thought that the dragon beads could only increase the cultivation of the Dragon Clan and the descendants of the Dragon Clan. When he fought with Ao Lan and Long Quang, he did not see them use the dragon beads to attack. At this moment, seeing Ao Sun use the dragon beads to attack, Yang Chun realized that the dragon's body was a treasure, and the dragon beads were also great offensive magic weapons. Before he had time to repair the golden bell, Yang Chun's legs tightened as if they were entangled by a strong hook, and he could not untie them for a while. That was because Yang Chun had such a terrifying physical strength. If it was another cultivator or even a Dragon Clan expert like Long Quang, with the power of several seas pressing down on them, even if they were not injured, they would not be able to move freely. However, just as Yang Chun exerted force on his legs, he heard a series of banging sounds on his right hand. This was because Yang Chun had wrongly blamed Ao Lan and Long Quang. It was not that the Dragon Clan did not use the dragon beads to attack, but they did not use them easily. For the Dragon Clan, the dragon beads could be said to be the source of their life. A slight injury would endanger their life. Only someone like Ao Sun, who had killed countless of his own clansmen and obtained countless dragon beads, would use them like this. In the past, Xiao Tian had never been injured in battle. However, this time, under the powerful attack of Ao Sun's dragon beads, even someone as strong as Xiao Tian vomited blood from the bombardment of the dragon beads. He had no choice but to spit out the immortal beheading saber. His entire body fell limp on Yang Chun's arm, unable to move. He had the intention to crush the bottle body with one hand, but the bottle body suddenly became not so hard, soft, sticky, and with a strong toughness. No matter how hard Yang Chun tried, he couldn't crush the bottle body. The second primordial spirit carried all the killing intent of the immortal beheading stage and the blood corpse. Finally, it could control the immortal beheading saber alone to face a strong enemy. A smile appeared on Yang Chun's face. So this was the intention of smashing the glass bottle. If it could hit Yang Chun and injure Yang Chun, it would be like a heavy hammer. If it could not, it would be like a sticky chain and a movable burden. Why don't you try it yourself, and you will know. Yang Chun replied with a smile. However, this level of attack would not cause any harm to Yang Chun. As long as Yang Chun exerted force with his legs, he would be able to break it in an instant. Chapter 2465. Ao Sun obviously did not expect that Yang Chun would give up holding the immortal beheading saber. In his impression, whether it was the news from Long Can, Long K, Yang Chun, and the Zhao family, or when Yang Chun crazily smashed the space in his Mountain River geographical map, it was always the image of Yang Chun holding the immortal beheading saber. In addition to the previous news that Yang Chun was an executioner, many cultivators, including Ao Sun, thought that Yang Chun's immortal beheading saber was only suitable to be held in the hand, and not suitable to be used as a flying sword. Even Yang Chun's wives and concubines had this concept. At least they had never seen their husband use the immortal beheading saber. He also used the mysterious Sky Dark Sea shuttle to travel and had never used the immortal beheading saber. As for cutting people, it must be the classic image of Yang Chun holding it in his hand and Xiao Tian wrapping it around his wrist. They knew that their husband's second primordial spirit had become the weapon spirit of the immortal beheading saber, but no one knew how powerful the second primordial spirit was as a weapon spirit. Now, it was also the time for them to broaden their horizons. A fierce killing intent directly enveloped a radius of dozens of miles. It could be said that as long as it was within this range, all living things, whether tangible or intangible, could not escape. The friends of Yang Chun who were watching the battle were not affected by this killing intent because the second primordial spirit consciously avoided them, but other places were not so peaceful. If there was any movement in this area, it would be locked by the crazy killing intent, and then it would be an indiscriminate attack. The attack was very simple, either a saber from top to bottom or a saber from left to right. It was simple and clear, but it was the most concentrated attack method. Yang Chun himself, hovering in the air, did not care about anything else. Anyway, as long as he felt a suspicious direction, he would pick up the big glass bottle and smash it. With the power of several seas smashing down, no matter what it was, it basically smashed into a pile of powder. After a while, the entire ground was smashed into a huge, deep pit. Sun relied on his speed and dodged a few of the immortal beheading saber slashes. His forehead was covered in cold sweat as he narrowly dodged a few slashes from the immortal beheading saber. What did it feel like to almost be hit by a magic treasure that you refined yourself? Sun did not dare to imagine what Lan and Kuang Long would think of him if he was struck by the glass bottle. It wasn't that it didn't want to take back the glass bottle. It wasn't just that it wanted to use the weight of the glass bottle to slow down Yang Chen's speed. It was just that the bottle was now in the hands of a freak like Yang Chun, so it couldn't be taken back. What was unspeakable bitterness? San was currently in such a state. This was clearly a magic treasure that he should be controlling. However, the other party grabbed it and smashed it at him. He wanted to give up, but he couldn't bear to. He had to use his spiritual energy and flesh to repair the damage caused by Yang Chun. Right now, San wanted to curse out loud. What the hell was this? It wasn't easy for him to break the boost that the Yazi gave to Yang Chun. In the end, Yang Chun just tossed the immortal beheading saber away and let it attack him. In that case, he should attack Yang Chun without the immortal beheading saber. However, Yang Chun's strength was simply too terrifying. As a result, if he were to engage in close combat with Yang Chun once, he would not be able to escape without leaving something behind. Now that he had come into contact with Xiao Chun 3 times, he had already lost a complete arm, a claw, a horn, and half a tail. If he were to engage in close combat again, who knew what price he would have to pay? Fortunately, the immortal beheading saber had finally left Yang Chen's hands. With Sen's speed, he could split some energy to attack Yang Chun. Boom! This time, Yang Chun accurately punched out, striking the top of the dragon pagoda that was thrusting at him. Since it was the fist that made contact, the golden bell did not appear, nor was it damaged. The immortal world's yellow scarf, strongman body tempering arts, second layer, brought about a powerful physical body that was comparable to the strongest magic treasure of the spiritual realm. The fist was fine, and the top of the pagoda looked fine. However, Sun hurriedly withdrew the dragon pagoda. On one hand, he dodged the incoming immortal beheading saber. On the other hand, he secretly checked the situation inside the dragon pagoda. Yang Chen's fist carried the spiritual energy cultivated by the golden body art. The golden body art contained the heavenly dipper treasure refining art, the earth fiend sacrificial formation art, and the complete universe treasure nurturing art. If it was used to refine one's own magic treasure, then these 3 techniques would be the best ones to refine. However, when used on the opponent's magic treasure, it would be the most ferocious technique to destroy magic treasures. Although the dragon pagoda did not have any damage on the outside, the internal structure had suffered damage that made Sen's heartache. If it was not for the fact that the dragon pagoda was refined from Sen's flesh and blood, allowing him to repair the damaged parts at any time with his own flesh and blood, just this damage would have made Sen cry. Fortunately, the billions of monster beasts gave Sun an endless source of vitality, allowing him to consume his body almost without limit. This made Sun seem to be evenly matched with Yang Chun, not falling behind. If not for this support, Sun would have definitely turned and fled. He would not have stayed for long. However, there was only one thing that Sun wanted to do. No matter what method he used, He had to take advantage of the moment when Yang Qin's morale was at its lowest to get rid of Yang Chun. Otherwise, if Yang Qin's aura rose again, Ao's son would not know how to restrain Yang Qin. Long Can and Long K did not lose unjustly. Even if they admitted defeat after a single strike, it would not be unjustly. This early-stage Golden Immortal Jr. in front of them was a living monster. Even the dragon race did not have such a freak. Unknowingly, Ao's son and Ao Lai had labeled Yang Qin a freak. Now Ao's son understood why Ao Lan and Long Quang transformed into human form. In front of this freak, the dragon race did not seem to have anything to be proud of. Thus, transforming into human form was not that hard to understand. Impressive. This time, at least 100 demon beasts died. As Ao's son spoke, he moved at his fastest speed, afraid that Yang Chun and the immortal beheading saber would lock onto him. As a Tao sect disciple, shouldn't you be bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the fate of mankind? Why are you still killing so enthusiastically? This was Ao's son starting to use psychological tactics. If it was when Ao's son was imprisoned, he would not have done such a thing. However, he had no choice but to use this method to disrupt Yang Chen's thoughts. I know that you want to kill me. However, I have a huge number of demon beasts backing me up. You have never seen them before. Ao Sen's voice came from all directions. It was extremely fast. Unless you can kill all these life forms, you will not be able to do it. Kill slowly. There will be a day when I kill them all. Yang Chen smiled. He stood at his original position and casually smashed the large glass bottle. Ao Sen's figure came to an abrupt stop. Then, he had no choice but to shrink the glass bottle. If it continued to shrink, he would probably be smashed by it soon. How embarrassing would that be? Chapter 2466. Don't you Taoist cultivators pay particular attention to merit? Under the combined attacks of Yang Chun and the immortal beheading saber, Ao's son relied on his high speed to dodge at least a dozen dangerous attacks. While he focused on dealing with the attacks, he did not forget to disturb Yang Chun. Are you not afraid of heaven's wrath for killing so indiscriminately? When the heavenly tribulation approaches, do you not feel guilty at all? If you do not feel guilty, why would I feel guilty? Yang Chen's fist once again accurately struck a certain part of Ao Sen's body. The golden bell appeared, and the golden light on it flickered several times. 10-odd dragon images circled around for a while before the crack that Yang Chen's punch created slowly mended. I am a madman, but are you also a madman? Ao's son laughed maniacally. Of course I do not care, but do you not care at all? When Yang Chen heard Ao's son calling himself a madman, he was stunned. This fellow was not a normal person. He had never considered things like a normal person. Talking to him was like playing the lute to a cow. However, in this moment of shock, Ao Sen saw an opportunity. He opened his dragon mouth, and an extremely sharp sword chi shot out from his throat. It accurately struck Yang Chen's body, piercing through his body. Yang Chen's body was like an arrow released from a bow. He was sent flying back at least several hundred kilometers before he lost all his momentum and fell to the ground. Ha ha ha! Ao Sen's maniacal laughter crossed several hundred kilometers and resounded in the sky. How is the might of the boundless sword chi condensed by 8 golden dragons? This was no ordinary sword chi. It was the boundless sword chi condensed by 8 golden dragons that were at least late-stage golden immortals. The 8 golden dragons refined it at the same time according to the 8 trigrams. It took at least several thousand years to refine this sword chi. It could be said that this boundless sword chi was absolutely invincible in the spiritual realm. Even Ao San himself had suffered greatly from this sword chi, nearly losing his life. Of course, the owner of the sword chi had been killed by Ao. Senator the sword chi had also been secretly refined by Ao San, allowing him to launch a sneak attack at the crucial moment. Ao San originally thought that he would see Yang Chen's family panicking. He also expected to see Ao Lan, Long Quang, and the others' horrified expressions. The enemy's fear was Ao Sen's greatest pleasure. However, What surprised Ao's son was that he did not see anyone with such an expression. Sigh, although you are an ancestor, you don't understand what a true freak is. When Lai saw Ao Sin's somewhat flabbergasted expression, he could not help but shake his head and remind him, that is an absolute freak who can beat you to a pulp at any time. You want to injure him with just one sword chi? It is not that I want to criticize you, but ancestor, you are still lacking. Stubborn duck. Ao-san did not care about this dragon race junior with the lowest cultivation. Although Lai had the aura of royalty of the dragon race, would Ao-san place the royalty of the dragon race in his eyes? Right now, Lai was only the worst refining material among all the dragons in the dragon clan. Bang! Just as Ao-san was feeling pleased with himself, his second primordial spirit locked onto him and ruthlessly slashed at his waist. Blood sprayed everywhere, and Ao-san let out a miserable howl. His entire body was split in two by the immortal beheading saber. Ao-san's painful dragon roar directly spread over a radius of tens of thousands of miles. Yang Chen's family and friends, as well as friends of the dragon clan, who were watching the battle, all took action in time to resist the attack brought about by this strong dragon roar. Originally, Ao-san thought that after being split in two, he would lose his combat prowess. However, as he howled, the two halves of his body started to grow. One grew downwards, the other grew upwards. Not long after, the part that was growing downwards had grown a complete hind leg and tail, becoming a complete dragon body. However, the upward growing part was slightly more troublesome. It did not grow fast enough. However, it was only because it was not fast enough. After a while, the front half of the dragon's body and a complete head grew out from its lower half. Now, after being split in two by the immortal beheading saber, Ao-san had become two dragons. Seeing this happen, Yang Chen's wives and concubines were all startled. If this could not kill Ao-san, then what kind of attack could take his life? When they thought of the hundreds of millions of demonic beasts behind Ao-san, everyone felt a headache. With this number of demonic beasts, even if they lined up for Yang Chen to chop off one by one, they would probably tire Yang Chen to death. With this, Ao-san was basically an undefeatable existence. Fortunately, Long Can and Long K obtained a pretty good cultivation technique. Of the two Ao-sins, one would be the main and the other the secondary. One would have a full set of magic treasures, while the other would be completely naked. However, at this moment, the two dragons spoke at the same time, as if they were thinking the same thing. Seeing this, everyone's hearts sank. The pretty good cultivation technique that Ao-san mentioned was definitely the cultivation technique that Yang Chen had used to split his spiritual sense. Indeed, it was the most suitable cultivation technique for Ao-san to split in two. A fall into the pit, a gain in one's wit. After being split into two by the immortal beheading saber, Ao-san naturally would not make the same mistake. One of the two bodies stared at the immortal beheading saber, restraining it. However, the other rushed to the crowd and shouted, "Weren't you all not worried about Yang Chen? In that case, where is he now?" Sometimes cultivators could not be complacent. Once they were complacent, they would forget themselves. This was the case for Ao-senator. Just as Ao-san spoke, he suddenly cried out as if he had seen a malicious spirit. "How is this possible?" At this moment, Yang Chen, who had been blasted hundreds of kilometers away by Ao-sin's boundless sword chi, slowly stood up from the ground. His body, which should have been pierced by the sword chi, did not seem to have any abnormalities. In the next moment, Yang Chen's figure disappeared and reappeared in front of Ao Sr., good sword chi. When Yang Chen reappeared in front of Ao-san, the first thing he did was to give him a thumbs up. Originally, I was worried that I had neglected Shan Shan recently. In the end, you sent me such a big gift. I reserved this sword chi and plan to give it to Shan Shan as a gift. How did you manage to block this sword? Ao-san could not believe his eyes. It was just Yang Chen's physical body and the golden bell. How could he withstand the full power of the boundless sword chi? One had to know that the golden bell that Ao Sun refined was several tens of times stronger than the one that Yang Chun had. However, it could not withstand a single blow from the boundless sword Qi. The result of receiving the blow was that he was pierced on both sides. How could Yang Chen's body not have any injuries at all? Oh, if it was something else, it would not be easy to block. However, as for sword Qi, I am good at it, Yang Chen said casually. This was not Yang Chen bragging. Back then, Ancestor Liu had left behind a sword scabbard that contained the unparalleled pure Yang, sword Qi. Yang Chen had already refined it into his body. As long as the sword Qi was not as strong as the unparalleled pure Yang sword Qi, with the strength of Yang Chen's physical body, he could basically ignore it. Take this. Ao Sun was anxious. The first Ao Sun did not move, but the second Ao Sun charged at Yang Chen. Chapter 2467. Although there was one Ao Sun that did not move, the fully armed Ao Sun was a great threat. Even someone as strong as Yang Chen had no choice but to divert most of his energy to guard against Ao Sun's attack at any time. The second Ao Sun that rushed up was even crazier than those monstrous beasts. It could be described in one word: unafraid of death. Yang Chen did not worry about those crazy fellows that did not have a conscious mind. At most, they were just relying on their instincts to act. However, it was a completely different matter for someone as abnormal as Ao Sun to rush up without any regard for his life. The beheading Immortal blade slashed towards the first Ao senator at this moment. Yang Chen had already extended his hand towards the incoming Ao senator. Yang Chen would not be afraid of Ao Sun if it was just a melee without any magic treasures. The only problem was that this fellow was like a cockroach that could not be killed. It seemed that no matter how many injuries he suffered, he would be able to recover in an instant. Boom, 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 boom. After a few continuous attacks, Yang Chen had already torn off half of Ao Sun's arm, a large piece of dragon skin with scales, and an entire dragon horn. Even so, Ao Sun did not seem to feel it. His long body took the opportunity to wrap around Yang Chen. More than a dozen Dragon Balls flew over from afar and smashed towards Yang Chen's head. Facing this kind of attack, Yang Chen did not dare to be careless. Just as he dodged, his sea of consciousness shook. More than a dozen foreign consciousnesses rushed into his sea of consciousness. In an instant, Yang Chen understood that the melee with the second Ao Sun was just a means to restrain him. The real attack was still this. More than a dozen consciousnesses, they were clearly the divine senses of more than a dozen dragon spirits. These were the golden immortal experts of the dragon clan that Ao Sun had killed and refined into artifact spirits. What was even more frightening was that all of these dragon spirits had actually cultivated Yang Lan's divine sense splitting technique. Although they seemed to be single individuals, they had actually completely integrated into one. When Yang Chen collided with Long Can and Long K in Yang Lan's sea of consciousness, Long Can and Long K had the impression that Yang Chen's spiritual awareness cultivation base couldn't be seen through, but his concealment was so strong that they couldn't find him at all. From this, Ao Sun deduced that Yang Chen's spiritual sense cultivation was definitely much higher than his spiritual energy cultivation. It might even be close to the level of Long Can and Long Quebec. At the very least, he was at the peak of the golden immortal stage. Unfortunately, although Ao Sun's guess was in the right direction, the exact number was not just 1 or 2 points off. Yang Chen's divine sense cultivation was indeed much stronger than his spiritual power cultivation, but it was not just one big realm higher, but 2 big realms higher, reaching the peak of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. This mistake caused Ao Sun to pay the price. Of course, the price was that he came face to face with Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, and then forcibly attacked the dozens of dragon spirits in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness. Don't look at the dozens of golden immortal level spiritual awareness dragon spirits merging into one, and the spiritual awareness cultivation base directly broke through the peak of golden immortal and entered the early Zenith Heaven golden immortal realm. However, when they faced the situation in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, Even if they had died once, they were completely shocked. The legendary soaring Heaven King Palace actually appeared in Yang Chen's Sea of Consciousness. Every detail was almost exactly the same as what they had heard. As for the parts that even they didn't know the details, they were also very detailed, as if this soaring Heaven King Palace was real. If it was just like this, it would be fine, but this soaring Heaven King Palace revealed a supreme and venerable aura that was not concealed at all. It filled the entire space majestically, making any consciousness that entered this space have an impulse to worship it immediately. The second consciousness of Ao Sun, who was originally playing the role of commander, just rushed into Yang Chen's Sea of Consciousness, but was suppressed by the powerful aura and could not move. The image of Ao Sun, which was formed by the consciousness of the spiritual body, actually had an uncontrollable desire to prostrate and worship. Aosin couldn't believe what he saw. How could it be? Yang Chun was just an early golden immortal. How could he have such a terrifying sea of consciousness? What was more frightening was that he found that he was almost unable to resist the imposing aura. It seemed that if he relaxed a little, the part of consciousness that rushed into Yang Chen's Sea of Consciousness would kneel down in front of Yang Chen's Sea of Consciousness. How could this be? Not to mention the second primordial spirit. Even the consciousness of the first body of Ao Sun could not tolerate all this. They were fighting so happily outside, but after rushing into Yang Chen's Sea of Consciousness with great difficulty, they had to kneel down in front of Yang Chen. What was the point of fighting? You came at the right time. A consciousness floated in Yang Chen's Sea of Consciousness. The coiling dragon pillar in the numinous sky hall just happens to be lacking some decorations. I'll help you. A terrifying suction force came from the top of the numinous sky hall. There was a white pearl at the top that was emitting a powerful suction force that sucked in all the dragon spirits that rushed in. No matter how Ao Sin's spirit body struggled, no matter how the dozen or so dragon spirits resisted, the powerful force completely ignored their struggles, ignored their resistance, and slowly pulled them closer to the white pearl. When the spiritual body finally came into contact with the edge of the pearl, the resistance could no longer be maintained. All the spiritual bodies were completely absorbed by the white pearl. The white pearl had helped Yang Chun purify his spiritual sense in the past. The spiritual sense of that zenith heaven golden immortal in the immortal world was completely purified by the white pearl into the purest spiritual sense for Yang Chun to absorb and assimilate. Now that the dragon spirits entered the white pearl, they enjoyed almost the same treatment. However, there was a slight difference. It did not completely purify their spiritual sense into pure spiritual sense. Instead, it refined all the restrictions on their spiritual bodies, all the restrictions that formed on their spiritual bodies after they died, leaving only the most fundamental dragon race origin spiritual body. The last step of this refinement was to erase the memories of these dragon spirits. Even so, when Yang Chun personally felt that these spiritual bodies were about to have their memories erased, they all thanked Yang Chen's Sea of Consciousness very solemnly. Being controlled by a madman like Ao Sun was not a pleasant process, nor was there any peace and tranquility. Perhaps they could obtain all this from Yang Chun. At least they would not be bound anymore. As long as they were willing, they could completely dissipate. However, none of these dragon spirits chose to dissipate completely. They all chose to have their memories erased, becoming the purest, most original, and purest dragon race spiritual bodies. These dragon spirits flew out of the white pearl freely. They each chose a coiling dragon pillar in the numinous sky hall and coiled around it. The coiling dragon pillar that Yang Chan mentioned finally lived up to its name. There were indeed dragon spirits entrenched on it, becoming a genuine coiling dragon pillar. Chapter 2468. Ao Sin's own consciousness, under the constant struggle, was completely refined by the white bead, becoming the purest source of spiritual awareness, once again supplementing Yang Chen's Sea of Consciousness. After cultivating Yang Lan's cultivation technique, Ao's son could feel almost all the changes that occurred. At the very least, he knew everything before his consciousness was erased. Thus, when Yang Chen's sea of consciousness was undergoing the last step, Ao's son had already made a move outside. Half of the second Ao Sin's consciousness rushed into Yang Chen's sea of consciousness and was refined by Yang Chen. The remaining half was definitely not Yang Chen's opponent. Thus, Ao's son did not think much and directly controlled the second half of his body to self-destruct. Originally, Ao's son had wrapped himself around Yang Chen's body and wanted to use spiritual energy to launch a sneak attack. Now that the sneak attack had failed, the explosion of Ao Sin's body that was wrapped around Yang Chen's body could cause great damage to Yang Chen. Boom! Under Ao Sin's control, the second Ao Sin's body had already concentrated its power and exploded around Yang Chen's body. Madman, truly a madman. Seeing this scene, even Ao Lan could not help but shake her head and sigh. Although Ao Sin's performance was very crazy at the start, he was still one of Ao Lan's ancestors. Ao Lan was still very unwilling to admit this. However, after seeing the self-destruct move that attacked Yang Chen, Ao's son could not help but mutter. The women were also somewhat worried, but none of them stepped forward. They believed in their husband from the bottom of their hearts and believed that their husband would not be killed by a crazy dragon self-destruction. The golden bell on Yang Chen's body flashed, but it only withstood a portion of the power before Yang Chen withdrew it. Even the dragon image did not have time to appear. The power of Ao Sin's self-destruction that Ao's son controlled around Yang Chen's body was almost completely withstood by Yang Chen's physical body. At least in the eyes of Ao's son, this was the case. Yang Chen did not use any protective magic weapon, did not use the golden bell, did not use the beheading immortal blade. Just his own flesh body and all the power of the explosion of his second body was taken. The flesh and blood of the explosion had not had time to be blown away by the power of the explosion. A huge Chinquin bag appeared beside Yang Chen, and all the bones, flesh, and skin that had turned into debris were collected in it. This is a good thing, it cannot be wasted. After collecting them, Yang Chen acted as if nothing had happened and threw the cosmos sack to Lady Fanghua. Fanghua, it is not bad to cook it and eat it when there is nothing. Madame Fanghua gave Yang Chen a charming smile from afar. She smiled and took the Chinquin bag and then handed it over to an apprentice who was also Yang Chen's concubine. Her long, beautiful smile almost became a line. All the women had smiles in their eyes, but Ao Sin's eyes flashed with a fierce light. Without using the golden bell's protection, Yang Chen's physical body was even stronger than the golden bell. This was something Ao's son did not expect. Senior, you don't seem to be very familiar with the Mountain River geographical map. Yang Chen's voice was still calm. I'm afraid that when Senior was imprisoned, Senior was not able to use the Mountain River geographical map to its full potential. Let me guess. Without waiting for Ao's son to reply, Yang Chen said, Actually, the Mountain River geographical map is still under Long Can's control. It just does not belong to him, right? Whether it was refining the spirit world or the demon world, it was all due to Long Can's hard work. It has nothing to do with Senior, right? So what if it is? Ao's son replied coldly. He was a proud fellow, and the dragon race was also a proud race. Although Ao's son did not really place Long Can and Long Can in his eyes, he was not wretched to the point of denying Long Can's hard work. This also solved one of the doubts in Yang Chen's heart. He had been wondering why Gong Sunling was able to make Long Can not do anything else while she was refining the other party space. If that was the case, then it could be explained. Because of this, although Long Can could use the Mountain River geographical map to refine the space, he was unable to share his life force with the demonic beasts inside. Ao-san was able to do this because the Mountain River geographical map was refined by him and belonged to him. Furthermore, it could be controlled by the Dragon Pagoda. Ao-san now had no choice but to take Yang Chen seriously. He had used almost all of his trump cards, but they were all broken by Yang Chen one after another. The magic treasures that Ao-san was so proud of, his strong physical body, and even his cultivation were unable to cause any substantial harm to Yang Chen. On the contrary, Yang Chun had already repeatedly injured himself. If not for Ao Sin's final trump card of sharing his life force, he might have lost his life here. At this moment, Ao Sun was in awe of himself for challenging Yang Chun the moment he escaped the cage. If it had been another day, when Yang Chin's morale was not at its lowest after being toyed with by him, Ao Sun would have suffered even more. From the start, Ao Sun had placed most of his attention on Yang Chun. This decision was indeed correct. If there was anyone in the spiritual realm who could put him in such a sorry state after he escaped, it would probably be this Yang Chun. On account of Big Sister Ao Lan, if Senior is willing to accept the internal punishment of the dragon race and follow Big Sister Ao Lan's orders to turn over a new leaf, we will stop here. Yang Chun looked at Big Sister Ao Lan and thought about what Big Sister Ao Lan had done before. In the end, he still gave Big Sister Ao Lan some face. To be able to exchange pointers with Senior, this junior is very honored. In the end, Big Sister Ao Lan was the dragon race's princess. She had her own pride. Earlier, she had held back in a fight with Long Can and Long K because she did not want Yang Chun to interfere. Actually, whether it was Long Can and Long K or Ao Sun, they were all internal matters of the dragon race. In his previous life, Yang Chun did not even know about them. Thinking about it, Big Sister Ao Lan probably hoped that these matters could be resolved within the dragon race. Otherwise, she would not have lied to Yang Chun. If not for a slip of the tongue, perhaps Yang Chun would not even know of Ao Sin's existence. Big Sister Ao Lan would probably find it difficult to be stuck between a fellow dragon race member and a friend like Yang Chun. Since Big Sister Ao Lan hoped for this, Yang Chun would not usurp the host's authority and make the decision for her. At this point, Ao Sun would not be able to do anything to Yang Chun for now. It was better to leave the choice to Ao Sun, to Big Sister Ao Lan, and to the dragon race themselves. Indeed, Yang Chun's words caused Big Sister Ao Lan's side to feel grateful. When she looked at Yang Chun, her gaze was a complicated expression of gratitude mixed with gratification. Yang Chun smiled at Big Sister Ao Lan and did not say anything else. There were some things that did not need to be said. Everyone knew what he meant. Ha ha ha! Ao Sun let out a burst of unbridled laughter. What a joke! What a great joke! Chapter 2469. It would be a lie to say that Ao Sun did not fear Yang Chun in his heart. Up until now, Ao Sun feared Yang Chun more than any other cultivator. Not to mention his powerful physical body, Ao Sin's trump card could not compare to Yang Chun's. His transcendent magic treasures could only match Yang Chun's at best, and that was only because Ao Sun repaired them quickly. As for Yang Chun, he had taken out the Immortal beheading saber and the golden bell was no longer needed. In Ao Sin's eyes, the boundless sword chi that could kill in one move had no effect on Yang Chun. It had only knocked him back several hundred kilometers. After that, not only did Yang Chun receive the sword chi, he even returned to his original position without any injuries. Originally, Ao Sun wanted to rely on his advantage in cultivation and numbers to use his spiritual sense to destroy Yang Chun's sea of consciousness. In the end, he saw the horrifying soaring Heaven King Palace. Not only did it take away his puppet dragon spirits, it even absorbed half of his dragon spirits, forcing Ao Sun to explode his clone. Only then was it barely a draw. Now, Ao Sin's only support was the crazy demonic beasts in his mountain river geographical map. The huge number of crazy demonic beasts could share their lives with Ao's senator. This could provide Ao Sun with an endless source of life, allowing him to be fearless of death. Aside from this, Ao Sun did not have any other advantages. Just as Yang Chun said, the true control of the mountain river geographical map was not in Ao Sin's hands. Instead, it was in Long Can's hands. Ao Sun had just escaped and took over the mountain river geographical map. He had not even figured out how to use it. Another point was that Ao Sun had used a special method to link his mountain river geographical map with Gong Suanling's. Not to mention that he was unable to separate them. He was at a disadvantage in terms of refinement. If Ao Sun had known that Gong Sunling's mountain river geographical map was so powerful, he would not have played like this, being controlled by others. Under such circumstances, not to mention that Ao Sun could not completely control the mountain river geographical map. Even if he could, he would still be restricted by Gong Sunling. Even if he could not use his strongest defensive and offensive methods, it would not change the current situation. However, if Xiao Chun wanted Ao Sun to surrender and obey the orders of his junior, Ao Lan, and accept punishment, how was that possible? Ao San had been imprisoned for such a long time and had yet to have a chance to vent the resentment in his heart. Seeing Ao Lan, Kuang Long, and Kuang Long not killing them and pulling out their tendons was already giving them a lot of face. Yet, they still wanted him to surrender without a fight. Wasn't this a joke? On the other side, Ao Sun was laughing maniacally, looking somewhat hysterical. However, Yang Chun did not laugh. Yang Chen's family did not laugh either. Yang Chen's friends also did not laugh. The dragon race's people also did not laugh. Everyone was quietly waiting for Ao San to calm down and make a decision. Soon, Ao San was affected by this strange atmosphere and stopped laughing maniacally. When he saw the look of anticipation in Ao Lan's eyes, he could not help but laugh coldly again. Dream on. After I kill you, I will kill all of you. I will refine you all into the most powerful magic treasures in the spiritual realm. Then, I will bring you all to the immortal world to settle the score with those old fellows. Ao-san was not planning on cooperating to the end. For some reason, Kuang Long and the other Long clan members even heaved a sigh of relief. As members of the dragon race, logically speaking, they should not be willing to see their own race suffer. However, the ancestor of the royal race, Ao Sun, was an exception. Yangshan also looked at his elder sister, Ao Lan. He still had to wait for her to make all the decisions. As the spokesperson of the dragon race's royal race in the spiritual realm, Ao Lan's decision represented the dragon monarch's decision. Seeing the unruly Ao San, Ao Lan turned her head to look at the other members of her race. In the end, she let out a long sigh and nodded heavily at Yang Chen's side. Although Ao San was a member of the dragon race and the royal race at that, he had already gone completely crazy. He did not treat his fellow clansmen as companions. Such a fellow might be better off dead than alive. At the very least, he would not threaten the lives of his clansmen. Just by looking at the number of dragon pearls that Ao San used to plot against Xiao Tian, it was clear how many of his clansmen Ao San had killed. This crazy fellow had never thought of repentance. Even now, he only looked at everyone based on the quality of the materials. When all the dragon race experts saw Ao Lan's action, they all heaved a sigh of relief. This was a very strange phenomenon. It was like all the dragon race experts were very confident in Yang Chun. Even though Yang Chun had not managed to injure Ao San in the slightest, everyone believed that Yang Chun would have a way to deal with him. Even a dragon race was like this. Needless to say, Yang Chen's wives and concubines were all the more confident in Yang Chun. Ao San might be jumping around happily now, but that was only because her husband had not killed him yet. Everyone firmly believed in this. This was the thing that Ao San could not tolerate the most. Why? Yang Chun had clearly not managed to injure him. But why did everyone, including the dragon race experts, have such strong confidence in Yang Chun and not think highly of him? After killing you, I will refine you into a puppet and bring you to the immortal world for your ancestor to see. When Ao Sun unleashed his killing intent without hiding it, Ao Sun actually calmed down. He was no longer as furious as before. Thank you. However, I think it would be better for me to meet the ancestor personally. There is no need to trouble Senior, Yang Chun said with a calm smile. He did not care about Ao Sin's infuriating words. As Ao Sun spoke, his second primordial spirit controlled the immortal beheading saber to fly back to Yang Chen's hand. This scene caused Ao Sin's eyes to widen involuntarily. He could not understand what Yang Chun was trying to do. If Yang Chun wanted to use the immortal beheading saber to deal with him, the Dragon Tower had already blocked dozens of attacks from the immortal beheading saber. Could it be that Yang Chun was naive enough to think that the immortal beheading saber could do anything to him without the support of Shao Tian? Every injustice has its perpetrator. Every debt has its debtor. When Yang Chun grasped the handle of the immortal beheading saber, he uttered a few catchphrases. Senior, you want to kill me. This karma, I will accept it. Yang Lan was the enemy that understood Yang Chun the most. Therefore, he understood Yang Chen's habits and catchphrases. From Yang Lan, Ao's son naturally knew some of Yang Chen's circumstances. He naturally understood what the words Yang Chen meant. However, Ao-sin could not help but widen his eyes as he stared at Yang Chen curiously. He could not imagine what other means Yang Chen had to kill him. Could it be that this sentence was just for show? This junior is a fire cultivator. Ao-san would not run away. Therefore, Yang Chen would not be so anxious to make a move for fear that he would escape. Instead, he calmly explained to Ao Sr., so what? Ao's son asked in a very blunt manner. Could it be that Yang Chen wanted to kill him because he was a fire cultivator? This junior has a life source true fire. Ao-sin guessed correctly. Yang Chen really thought so. Senior, take this. Chapter 2470. Yang Chen was a fire cultivator, and it was not unusual for a fire cultivator to have a true life fire. However, apart from some of Yang Chen's close friends, many cultivators did not know what Yang Chen's true life fire was. Judging from Yang Chen's cultivation process in the mortal world, many people speculated that Yang Chen's true life fire was the most suitable earth fire for alchemy. But later, the news of Yang Chen's purchase of fire seeds was annihilated. No one could accurately judge what Yang Chen's true life fire was. In the spiritual world, after the profound spirit furnace was passed on to Mo Chunmei, the matter of Yang Chen's purchase of fire seeds was further explained in detail. Yang Chen's true life fire naturally became a mystery. However, many cultivators would rather believe that Yang Chen's true life fire was the most suitable fire seed for alchemy than anything else. Hearing Yang Chen's words, the one who felt the most was not Ao's son, but Long Quang. When this guy had just been resurrected, he recklessly wanted to teach Yang Chen's family a lesson. As a result, he was ravaged by them one after another. It was a tragic sight. Among them was the process of him forcing Yang Chen to compete with his own life fire seed. For a long time after Long Quang's death, the horror of almost being burned to death by his own life fire seed had always been a nightmare for Long Quang. It was not until he became true friends with Yang Chen and Yang Chen's family that he was relieved. But that was enough for Long Quang to remember Yang Chen's fire-controlling technique. Now Long Quang remembered that Yang Chen did not use fire attacks when he made his move. Logically speaking, Ao's son was of the wood attribute and would give birth to fire. If Yang Chen used fire attacks, the effect should be the best. However, Yang Chen did not use it at all. He must have been waiting for this moment. Long Quang felt a chill run down his spine. In a battle of this level, Yang Chen was still able to leisurely hide his trump card until the end. Moreover, he was not at a disadvantage in the previous battles. He didn't know what kind of leopard's guts he had eaten in the past to be so eager to seek death and suppress Yang Chen. The current Ao's son seemed to be repeating Long Quang's bad habit from back then. Although he had paid enough attention to Yang Chen, he still did not treat Yang Chen as an expert who could take his life at any time. Perhaps this was the root cause of his big fall this time. Ha 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 ha. Ao's son burst into laughter. He could not help but laugh out loud after hearing Yang Chen's words. This joke was too funny. Ao's son simply could not hold it in. Even though he was still in his dragon form, Ao's son still laughed heartily, twisting his body a few times to express his extremely amused mood. Are you planning to use the fire seed of your alchemy to deal with me? Ao-sin stopped laughing with great difficulty. However, there was still an uncontrollable smile on his face. He even said, I'm so scared. Only those who know their stuff will be scared. Yang Chen snapped his fingers. As if he could not hear the ridicule in Ao-sin's words, he sincerely took it as a compliment. I believe that Senior would also be willing to die under such a method. Ao-sin really wanted to laugh. However, he was unable to laugh in the next moment. In front of him, a black fire dragon appeared. Its entire body was made of flames. It was vivid and lifelike, and in an instant, it became the same size as him. The reason why Ao, Sun, could not laugh was that he could sense the terrifying destructive power contained within the black fire dragon. However, he could not figure out what kind of fire seed was black no matter how hard he racked his brains. Whether it was a cultivator or a mortal, the unknown was the most terrifying. This was especially so when he knew that the black fire dragon was extremely powerful, but he had no impression of it at all. He did not know how to deal with it. Of course, Ao Sin's fear only lasted for an instant. He immediately regained his composure. So what if it was a powerful fire seed? Even if it could burn him black and blue, to the point where he was unrecognizable, so what? As long as he had so many crazy demonic beasts to share his life with, he might not even be able to recover from the fire. What was there to be afraid of? Ao-san was not even afraid of Yang Chen's immortal beheading saber. So why would he be afraid of this insignificant fire dragon? Ao-san steeled his resolve. In the next moment, he took the initiative to charge at the fire dragon. The black flames instantly surrounded Ao-san, mercilessly burning him, turning him into a burning black torch. The sizzling sounds of Ao-san's burning body and the crackling of his scales would cause anyone who heard it to feel their hair stand on end. However, Ao-san seemed to be enjoying bathing in the sea of fire as he let out a satisfied laugh. How warm! Ao-san's voice was filled with enjoyment. It was as if the flames did not bring him pain, but happiness. Through the flames, everyone could see that after half of Ao-san's scales were burned away, they would slowly return to their original state. Then, they would start burning again, repeating the process. Is that all? After quietly letting the black flames burn him once, Ao-san's provocative voice came from the sea of flames. His voice was filled with disdain and ridicule. Of course not, Yangchen replied calmly. He then reminded Ao-san, Senior, just enjoy it. I hope you like this accident. What accident? Ao-san asked in confusion. However, he immediately shut his mouth. He understood what kind of accident it was. In Ao-san's sea of consciousness, a white fire dragon had appeared at an unknown time. The fire dragon looked exactly the same as the black dragon outside. However, when it appeared in his sea of consciousness, Ao-san was shocked. When did this happen? He actually did not know about it. From the moment Ao-san's spiritual sense entered Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, Yang Chen had already controlled his spiritual sense to enter Ao-san's sea of consciousness. The spiritual sense was too thin to the point that Ao-san did not notice it. At this moment, the Yin Fire Dragon followed Yang Chen's spiritual sense into Ao-san's sea of consciousness and started burning. The dragon race had a kind of spirit-devouring dragon fire. It was Ao-Lai's life fire seed. It could frantically burn a cultivator's sea of consciousness with boundless might. In Yang Chen's yin-yang heaven incinerating fire, there were at least 10 types of fire seeds with similar properties. Furthermore, it seemed to have merged all the yin-yang fire seeds in the entire spiritual world. Its might was many times stronger than the spirit-devouring dragon fire. His body and sea of consciousness were being burned by the yin-yang heaven incinerating fire. Ao-san once again roared in pain. Then, he quickly connected to the frenzied demonic beasts and frantically extracted their life force to replenish his body and mind. Is that all you have? While enduring the pain of being burned, Ao-san once again clamored. Is that all? It's still not enough. That's right, I forgot to tell Senior. Yang Chen's voice was still as calm as before. This Junior's fire seed is called the yin-yang heaven incinerating fire. Senior can ponder why it is called the heaven incinerating fire. Chapter 2471. Ao-san swore that this was the first time he had heard Yang Chen say the name of his own life source fire seed. Similarly, he could still swear that this was the first time he had heard the name of this kind of fire seed. What kind of fire was this yin-yang heaven-burning fire? How powerful was it? Ao-san's mind went blank. As for what did he mean by burning heaven? Ao-san almost blurted it out. Was he bragging? Finally, he was very clear about the fearsomeness of the little guy in front of him, so he held back and did not say it. Through long can and long K, Ao Sun could know the thoughts of many cultivators and also know a lot about the current situation of cultivation. The vast majority of cultivators like to give their own cultivation method or magic weapon a high and mighty name. Otherwise, they would not be able to show the power of the cultivator. Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire. This name should be the first reaction, not to mention Ao Sun. Even Yang Chen's wives and concubines knew the name of the Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire. They also knew that their husband's fire seed was the fusion of all the fire seeds in the world. They knew that their husband's fire-controlling method was elusive, but no one had seen the true power of the Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire. Now, Yang Chun, in front of his wives and concubines and friends, gave everyone a live performance of what was called the Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire. What was the meaning of burning heaven in this name? The Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire was not only burning in Ao Sen's body and sea of consciousness. Because Ao Sun and those crazy monstrous beasts shared their lives, there was an inexplicable connection between their bodies. And the Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire relied on this connection that no one could understand, directly burning the bodies and sea of consciousness of those monstrous beasts. What was burning in Ao Sen's body and sea of consciousness was at most a fire seed. Although this fire seed was only a little bit, but in a short period of time, it had become a prairie fire. The hundreds of millions of crazy monstrous beasts in Ao Sen's mountain river geographical map suddenly ignited with black flames. These flames were so terrifying that no matter what method these monstrous beasts used, they could not extinguish these flames. Even if they instinctively rushed into the water, the flames were still burning in the water, without the slightest sign of extinguishing. Not only outside, in the chaotic sea of consciousness of the monstrous beasts, the white flames were also like an inextinguishable sun, burning all the chaos and chaos. Ao Sen's mountain river geographical map only had 1/10 of the demon world left. The living space of all the monstrous beasts was not enough. They were forcibly bound by Ao Sen's space. Under the burning of the Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire, no matter what kind of bondage, these monsters could no longer be controlled. With flames all over their bodies, the monsters ran wildly in all directions. Yang Chun and Ao Sen's battlefield was on the edge of the spatial boundary between the two sides. Yang Chen's family and friend were on this side of Gong Sun Ling, and Ao Sun was on the other side. During the battle, both Yang Chun and Ao Sun were very cautious. They tried their best not to put their bodies in the opponent's space. This was also a very cautious attitude. Now that everyone was looking at what was happening on the other side of the demarcation line, no one could say anything. Countless monstrous beasts were covered in flames as they fled in all directions. The might of the flames had not fully manifested yet. It had not reached the point where it would immediately burn those monstrous beasts to ashes. However, everyone understood that a large part of the reason was because of the other party's life sharing. When all the monstrous beasts were affected by this prairie fire, a horrifying scene occurred. Right in front of everyone, on the other side of the demarcation line, almost all the ground, mountains, rivers, seas, everything that the monstrous beasts had touched, were covered in black flames, burning crazily. And in the sky, there was an area where the white flames were wreaking havoc. The white, seemingly translucent 5 elemental flames occupied half of everyone's vision, while the other half was occupied by the black flames. Right now, there were only 2 colors in everyone's vision, black and white. Everything in sight was burning. What kind of horrifying scene was this? Ao Sun could no longer be seen. He was completely covered by the black and white flames. Only his painful screams could be heard from the sea of flames, making everyone's hair stand on end. Such a horrifying scene. Even the arrogant Long Quang and the unruly Ao Lai did not dare to easily extend out their spiritual senses to investigate, for fear of being accidentally affected. Although they all knew that the one who caused all this was their friend Yang Chun, and these were Yang Chen's life fire seeds, which he could easily control, no one dared to take the risk. Unfortunately, this horrifying scene only happened on the other side of the demarcation line. All the flames were like obedient children, burning neatly along the demarcation line. On one side was a fiery hell, and on the other side was a calm heaven. Just this move alone had fully demonstrated Yang Chen's superb control over the yin-yang heaven-burning fire. Everyone finally understood what Fentian meant. The entire mountain river geographical map of Ao, Sun, 1/10 of the demon realm, was completely engulfed in a sea of flames, not leaving an inch of blank space. What kind of doomsday scene was that? The sky, the ground, and the sea were all burning. Even the stones were burning, not to mention the living things that could breathe. All the living and dead things could not withstand a single blow in front of the yin-yang heaven-burning fire. The hardest stone also turned into powder, and the entire sea was evaporated. After seeing the scene in front of them, everyone suddenly discovered that all the so-called powerful fire seeds in the past were not even worthy of carrying shoes in front of this black and white flame. Long Quang suddenly discovered that when he challenged Yang Chun without knowing the immensity of heaven and earth, he was really lucky not to be burned to death by his own life true fire. Thanks to the relationship between Ao Lan and Yang Chun, he would have long been like those demonic beasts, turned into a pile of ashes. I knew it. I knew it. Relatively speaking, Ao Lai was not afraid to use the most extreme imagination to imagine Yang Chun. Looking at all that Yang Chun had caused, he only muttered this sentence, nothing else. The few experts of the Long family all had aghast gazes in their eyes, and they could not help but rejoice in their hearts. Fortunately, their princess and Yang Chun were good friends. Fortunately, they only let Long Yuan test the waters before immediately admitting defeat. Otherwise, it was unknown how big a mess they would have stirred up. Madame Bai and the others only watched quietly and did not say anything. However, in Madame Bai's eyes, they could clearly see the light of approval and nothing else. While Lin Jingyuan was shocked, he also secretly rejoiced that he could be on good terms with an expert like Yang Chun in the spiritual realm. Yang Chen's wives and concubines were also not much better. However, since this was their own husband's fire seed, there was no problem at all. This could only make them proud, nothing else.